6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, probably a little crazy too today. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. It's an absolutely fire show today. The MAGA retribution plan. They're going to put their political opponents in jail. Is this unfair? Is this malicious prosecution? Or is this mutually assured destruction back at the Democrats? You want to destroy us with your lawfare? Well, we'll fight right back. We'll get into that in the 6 o'clock hour. 7 o'clock, Greg Lopez, candidate for Congressional District 4, is going to be joining us live in studio. He'll be taking questions about how he plans to lead for his very brief congressional career, 6 months. As he is not running for the general election in November, but to fill the special vacancy seat left by Ken Buck. Is he on CNN now? Is he just hanging out over there full time? 8 o'clock.
He was on Bill Maher recently.
Was Ken on Bill Maher?
Yeah, he was on Bill Maher recently. Yeah.
Good
I didn't see
him.
the whole thing, but yeah, I saw a clip. Yeah. Seemed to do okay. And the exchange that I saw, and I can't pull it out of my brain at this time of the morning, but there was an exchange where Ken had some good one-liners. Mar was saying stuff, and Ken gave something back, and I'm like, that was smart. I mean, it was quicker than I thought he was at that. Yeah, it was good. So, yeah, but I didn't see the whole interview. But, yeah, he was on Mar recently.
I'd love to have a heart-to-heart with Ken about what all happened there. Ken and I were very close. I worked on multiple campaigns for him. So, good man, but I don't know what happened there at the end. All right, Dave Williams joining us at 8 a.m., chairman of the Colorado Republican Pride. We're going to ask him, are gay people welcome into the Colorado GOP?
Probably not.
We'll have to see what he says about all that. And then Lora Ries, director of border security and immigration at the Heritage Foundation, will be talking about Biden's immigration plan. Is it worth the paper it's even written on? We'll get into that in 9 o'clock hour. So MAGA, Greg Lopez, Dave Williams, Lora Ries, and the Heritage Foundation. This is going to be a wild morning. You're going to want to stick with us through it all. Let's check in on the news. The Blake Olson news. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, TGIF, Jeff and Billy, 62 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, if you're heading to the high country this morning, there's a new warning about possible large wet avalanches through Sunday. The Colorado Avalanche Information Center already recorded several happening Wednesday, more than typical for early June. State park officials making an official statement and saying to always wear a life jacket because they save lives. 15 people have died on rivers and lakes so far this year, and it's still early in the season. Last year, there were 32 water-related deaths compared to a record 42 2 years ago. President Biden in Paris this morning for a meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Not certain if they'll talk about all the money the Bidens made off the Ukrainian government the past decade, but speaking of Hunter Biden and the Bidens, his federal firearms trial continues today in Delaware. His late brother's wife taking the stand. Haley Biden dated Hunter when he purchased the firearm and is testifying about how she tossed the gun into a dumpster outside of a grocery store in Wilmington. He's accused of illegally buying and possessing a gun while being addicted to crack in 2018.
And his defense argument is, yes, I was addicted to crack before and after, just not during. I'm seriously, that is his defense right now.
It is, absolutely.
And we didn't get into this yesterday because we ran out of time, but I mean, his ex-wife having to pull crack pipes out of cars so that if their daughters got pulled over, they would not get in trouble for drug possession because their dad was driving around addicted to drugs, and he was smoking crack in 20-minute increments. Some of the women that he, visited and paid for their company testified that he was smoking every 20 minutes.
Wow. Can you imagine if he didn't have money and the power? I mean, there's no way he'd be alive.
No, he'd be homeless in Denver or Portland.
That's right. And he'd be getting some freebies too. Now, London Roberts, mother of Hunter's 5-year-old daughter, she spoke to Piers Morgan last night, and President Biden doesn't acknowledge the granddaughter, but Roberts handles it really well.
I mean, like the world knows, Hunter has a lot on his plate right now. And so I think that needs to be his main focus and getting through this time, and then the rest can come after. And you know, Navy's well aware. She knows that her father's very busy right now, and he's got a lot of things going on, and she's waited 5 years. She can wait a couple more months.
So she has a new book coming out that should be interesting.
Go ahead, Blake.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I saw that Joe Biden said he's not going to pardon Hunter if he gets convicted. I think that, I don't know, kind of as a dad, I'd be like, well, yeah, maybe I would, but maybe he needs some time in jail to clear this all up.
Maybe so. Yeah. And in this interview with London Roberts, is her name, Piers asked her who she's going to vote for. And then she says, I don't even know who's running. And then she goes into, well, you need to read the book to find out. I actually had a story where she took her daughter to vote for Biden for president, but it's obvious she's going to vote for Biden. Man, this lady is a saint, you know, but at the same time, she knows where her bread is buttered. So that saga continues. So we'll keep an eye on that. I'll have more on that coming up.
Blake, if your son was convicted of this stuff, would you pardon him?
I don't, you know what? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't recognize him if he was doing that, and I would try to treat him just like any other criminal.
Yeah.
I think. How about you?
That's a tough one. That is a tough one. I think, yeah. If I felt like the prison though could help straighten him out, I'd be like, you're going.
Yeah. Good point.
But if it's going to be like 30 or 40 years for a felony gun conviction, no, I'm not going to let my son just when I have the power to let him out.
Kind of goes back to the prodigal son thing, right?
Right. Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And man,
so I guess it depends on how the son is acting.
God, that's what you do every day. You just pray your kids. You put Jesus in them. You put God in them, and just pray
100%.
They don't go off the tracks, man.
Yep.
Heat exhaustion is to blame for 11 people being transported to the hospital while waiting in line for a campaign event for former President Trump in Phoenix. Temperatures reached over 110 degrees in the city on Thursday. A Denver area human trafficker has been sentenced to 448 years in prison, the longest sentence for human trafficking ever handed down in U.S. history. Robert Hawkins was convicted of 18 counts in March, including human trafficking, pimping, sex assault, and exploitation. 4 women, 2 girls, and 1 man testified against Hawkins, and one of his victims was a 13-year-old. Hawkins rejected a plea deal that would have given him a 40-year sentence. All right, Celtics run past the Mavericks 107-89 in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Game 2 Sunday, Rockies beat the Cardinals 3-2 Thursday. First pitch tonight in St. Louis at 6:15. NHL Finals tomorrow in Florida. It's 60 in North Glen, 59 in Englewood, and 62 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue Friday morning. Good morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll continue to be warm. Temperatures reaching a low 90s, sunny to partly sunny, but there will be late afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Lows tonight near 60. It's not going to be as warm. About 80 Saturday, a good chance for afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Lows upper 50s Saturday night. Only 70s to low 80s Sunday, late day thunderstorms. 70s, late day thunderstorms Monday, back to the 80s Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Ande in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
All right, welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're going to get into a lot of interviews later in the show, but I want to have a conversation now because this is going to be a big part of the upcoming election. MAGA's jail plan, Axios calls this. Former President Trump wins in November. Top supporters will push him to investigate and prosecute and even try to imprison Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who won Trump's conviction in the hush money case. Steve Bannon saying, of course, Bragg should be and will be jailed. Bannon is one of the top voices in the MAGA movement and saying, for the record, what many Trump supporters are privately plotting. What do you think about this? Give me a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Is this the right move for Republicans to push back and say, look, you on the left have engaged in malicious prosecution. You've put together organizations like the 65 Project that have now gone after 100 Republican lawyers with bar complaints against them, arguing that their livelihoods as attorneys should be taken away. And the best thing for Republicans to do right now is to engage in a process of mutually assured destruction. That if you're going to utilize lawfare against political opponents, we are going to do the same thing because it's the only way to get you to stop. We have tried to say we need to be above this, that America shouldn't be above this, and we continue to get drugged down into these types of efforts to prosecute us, take away our bar licenses. And so the best way to get you to stop is to show you how painful this process can be against yourself, an effort of mutually assured destruction. Or is this a continued effort to destroy the union, and Republicans shouldn't engage with this? This is not right. This is, Donald Trump being a bully. And this shouldn't happen here in America. He's a convicted felon, and I don't want this being done against political opponents, and it's wrong for Trump to do it. Give me a call, 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Billy, what do you think about this? Is this Republican retribution time?
What's Project 65? They're just going after Republicans, right? Just any Republican lawyer, they're going to go say, hey, we're going to get the Republican lawyers, because it's obviously lawfare, right? That's what they're doing?
So they're up to now, I think, over 100 attorneys. And what they do is they file bar complaints. So like what they did.
But just my question is random Republican attorneys. They just go around to make sure that Republicans can't have any attorneys at all.
Not just. Well, that's kind of up for debate, because here's what they've said. They want to make lawyers toxic in their communities. The group files ethics complaints against lawyers who represented clients raising challenges to the 2020 election, despite a substantial body of evidence that presidential election results have been frequently challenged throughout our nation's history, including most recently by Democrats in 2016.
Yeah, but that's rationalization. What the Republicans did in 2020 isn't close to what the Democrats have done in the past. I understand, and I always hear this. Yes.
All of them. All of them that are being charged.
The vast majority, yes. Yeah, absolutely. And you have instances like Rudy Giuliani showing up in court and having to admit that he didn't have the proof he said he did when he filed the lawsuit, that he couldn't produce it. That's an issue. When you have the lawyer having to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in libel and slander causes. Yes. When you have Jenna Ellis, Kenneth Chesebro pleading guilty for conspiracy. Yes. I'm sorry. If you can show me a giant Democrat conspiracy, go right ahead and charge them. Get a special group and do that. But we have a conspiracy that's been exposed on the Republican side of the aisle. It's open. I mean, we have the emails from Kenneth Chesebro.
It's fine for Republicans, if they get into office, to explore these investigations, right?
They've been doing it, right? What has Comer been doing, and what's Jim Jordan been doing? Isn't Jim Jordan about the weaponization of government? Where's his stuff? Where's his stuff?
But I mean, it's good for them to dive in and do these explorations, right? Or is that lawfare?
No, they sure did. They went in and they did the exploration. What have they found? Bupkis. They found nothing.
About what?
Jim Jordan. He's tried to find the weaponization of the government, and so far he's got nothing.
Oh,
zero.
He has Colangelo.
Zero.
Nothing.
He has nothing.
That's not true.
He has nothing.
That's not true. To say
who has he brought up?
Nothing.
Who has he brought up on charges? Who is he referring?
Well,
nothing.
Maybe
he has zero.
There yet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's taking him how long? Come on, seriously.
The case just took place last week, 2 weeks ago.
What? No, Kenneth. No. Colangelo left long ago, and again, he doesn't have any weaponization. So far, Jim Jordan has nothing. Same thing as Comer. Same thing as Comer.
They have asked the DOJ for all this. You saw this with Matt Gaetz earlier this week. Give us the documents. Give us the communications. They haven't gotten those from the DOJ yet. So to claim that there is nothing there, that's not true.
They're looking for documents that probably aren't there. Same thing. Same thing with
that.
Same because of what we've seen based on what Jim Jordan and James Comer have been producing, which is crap. So far, they haven't been able to produce anything. They are getting as bad as Adam Schiff when he was crowing around what was going on January 6th. They're getting that bad. It is absolutely awful. And again, if we have a coordinated effort by Democrat lawyers to try and overturn an election, go right ahead and charge them.
How is it trying to overturn an election to push additional legal theories out there? Like, what? Tell me where the overturning tried to take place.
The idea that you challenge the election inside of courts, and then you put together a slate of fake electors.
Wait, we challenge something inside of a court, and that's an effort to overturn a criminal effort to overturn something?
I didn't finish.
Okay, go ahead.
Because there's a plan, and we have the plan outlined by Kenneth Chesebro, and it is to challenge issues in court, to turn around again. If those worked, great, and some of those possibly could have worked, but they didn't have the evidence they needed when they showed up in court. This whole idea that has been told that they never let us look at the information and the evidence, that's not true. That is absolutely not. Hey, no. I'm going to continue this. That is not true. They also then put together a plan to get a whole bunch of fake electors together, and then got lawmakers in the House to object to the certification of the election, and went so far as the secondary part of the plan was to have Mike Pence send it back to the state legislatures, and it was only the state legislatures that were controlled by Republicans, and they were going to use the questions that they had based on the legal filings that they have done earlier to create the smokescreen in order to overturn it. In fact, they had a backup plan that if Mike Pence didn't want to do it, they asked him to step aside that day so they could bring up someone else. Chuck Grassley, I think it was Chuck Grassley that had it. No, the issue is there's a plan.
Oh, so there's a plan.
Yeah, and they tried to implement it.
Wait, there's an idea of challenging something legally.
No, not legally. Not at all.
This wasn't legal. This wasn't legal. This was all done in the courts. Now, what do you mean this wasn't legal? All right.
Wait, hang on. Those electors aren't legal. The fake electors. They are not legal. That is fraud. Submitting that slate of electors to the National Archives
was not a violation
of
law in Colorado until earlier this year.
What was not a violation of law?
Having a quote, fake set of electors or an alternative set of electors so we could challenge this thing and figure it out.
Once you submit them to the National Archives and after the election in that state has been certified, it's fraud. That's what happened. That is fraud.
Then why did we have to pass a law in Colorado earlier this year to make it illegal if it was already fraud?
No, hang on a sec. It's fraud once you have the electors and you submit it to National Archives. That's irrelevant. What they did here is they said you can't put together this plan. I mean, I remember early in December hearing a whole bunch of talk from Republicans about how they had to go ahead and make sure that all these fake electors were all put in place. In fact, one of the group, I think it was in Michigan, signed the document outside of the Capitol saying they were in the Capitol, which again is fraud. And go look at what Illinois did. Illinois' slate of electors were smart enough to add into the document unless the court's challenges fail. If the court challenges fail, we withdraw. That's what they needed to do. The others didn't. That was the issue. And you know that on January 6th, there still was a push for Mike Pence to not certify a certified election and to overturn it and send it back to the states, which would have given it to Trump. Overturning an election. That's why people were so mad on January 6th. They were looking to stop certification of a free and fair election. That's a plan. You show me Democrats doing that? Let's go. Fine. Go ahead and charge them. Charge all the lawyers involved in that. Go right ahead. But I got to see it first. And we have the memos from Cheesebro outlining the plan that is at its core illegal.
So what Bill is conveniently ignoring here is the effort by Democrats in previous elections to have alternate electors as well.
How many?
The idea that they were not prosecuted by this. Democrats have challenged elections over and over again. They have taken these challenges to court. Even as recently as this last election in 2022 and 2020. But have they been brought up on RICO charges as a result of this? This is the result of lawfare and an effort to go after Republicans and to make them, quote, they even say, toxic in their own communities. They want to intimidate Republican attorneys from fighting for their clients and their candidates. And at this point, the only way to get them to stop doing this is to engage in the same type of lawfare that the left has done to the right.
Remind me,
what was mutually assured destruction.
What was Trump's group chanting during the 2015 campaign? There was a popular chant, not the wall thing.
And
they were chanting something else.
They were chanting.
No, they were chanting something else. What was it?
Right.
What was
Lock her up.
Okay. Yeah.
Did they pursue it?
Hang on a sec. The idea, no, hang on. You're missing my point. The idea that Republicans are above board and are against going after their political opponents. We see it with both Hillary and we see it with Barack Obama. We saw it over and over again with Barack Obama as well. And President Trump did not pursue Hillary because his Department of Justice told him no. Jeff Sessions told him no.
Why?
Then he came out.
Why?
Because of the ruling, because of what the FBI found.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is pretty much. Yeah.
It's because they know that ultimately this is not beneficial for the union to do this to your political opponents. No. And Trump made this point. Where are we going to be because of what the left has done to Donald Trump after this election? 2 days, if Donald Trump wins, 2 days after Joe Biden is out, he's going to be indicted on whatever they can possibly dredge up because that's the America we're going to live in now.
You forgot all the lawsuits and things that were about how Barack Obama's a secret Islamic traitor and wasn't born
lawsuits?
Here. Yeah, there were lawsuits that were filed to prevent him from being able to run for president based on if he was an actual American citizen.
Did you like that? Do you think that's good?
No, I thought it was stupid.
So you think lawfare is stupid?
Again, you are coming to the conclusion that what the Democrats are doing is coordinated.
This is a whole nother level, though. Billy, this is a whole nother level.
Again, hang on a second.
Republicans didn't even prosecute Hillary Clinton. And you had the server, you had the cleaning, the bleaching, whatever the process was, she did the server, and they didn't.
What were the charges inside of the server? What was the charge? I mean, again, I hate going down these roads over and over again. But again, she didn't possess classified documents on the server. There were conversations about classified information. It shouldn't have been on a private server. She shouldn't have had those conversations. And the security was fairly lax about them. But hang on a second. I was like, we can point back to people in other administrations using private servers as well, including people under the Trump administration. So fine. Yeah, what I feel that she should be charged for some of the stuff that she did. But the idea that she had a whole bunch of these classified documents and was hiding them wasn't borne out by the facts. That's not what the FBI found.
The Democrats prosecuted the first ever former president of the United States on falsified business records. Are you kidding me?
How to explain
that?
To me? Hang on,
we're going to go that way on the Democrats?
A Democrat prosecuted Trump on that. Alvin Bragg.
That he went to.
He had to go to a grand jury. The idea, and this is the problem I have. This is an assumption that this is a large coordinated effort. Really, you think? Really?
Have you looked at the 65 Project? Do you know how much money that is? Do you know who's running that?
Hang on a sec. Tell me how the 65 Project is prosecuting Donald Trump.
They're prosecuting Republicans.
No. You're saying the Democrats are going after Donald Trump. That was your issue. I said one guy did it, Alvin Bragg, in that case. And so
you're dancing.
No, I'm not, man. The issue is you've come to a conclusion and you're working backwards. You've decided this is lawfare, and now you're asking whether or not there's retribution. You've come to the conclusion first. This happens over and over again. Just like we had in 2020, people came to the conclusion that because the guy I voted for didn't win, it obviously was stolen. So I'll believe any bat crap crazy theory about it just so I can feel like I'm right.
Bill,
that's where we are.
No, you're dancing all around this.
No, I'm not.
65 Project funded entirely by Democrats, claiming to be bipartisan, which isn't at all, is targeting Republicans in an effort to make them, quote, toxic in their communities. This thing's run by Media Matters. It's run by former Democrat operatives. This is lawfare, and I know people who've been targeted by this, and now we're at a point where the only response is to build something similar and go after Democrats because it's mutually assured destruction. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to Dwayne. Divide, you're on the Jeff and Bill show. Good morning, Dwayne. How's it up there?
Good morning, gentlemen. We're a whole rough 62 degrees up here right now, folks, and I feel sorry for you folks in the pavement jungle. As far as retribution goes, and I want to just go direct here, I believe that Trump should take Alicia and Alvin and the judge and sit there and file a class action, get his DOJ to just dig up everything on them and make sure they look really bad. And then just before sentencing, he pardons them and just basically lets them know that they could have had the rope, but he decided to be more magnanimous. We'll give him 6 points in the polls with everybody. Everybody will see the complete and total slime show that he's been through, and we walk through nice and clean in the future.
I mean, Dwayne, I think everybody wants to move past this, but the fact that some folks you don't see it, you have a judge that has donated to Joe Biden and an organization called Stop the Republicans. You have a prosecutor who bragged about prosecuting Donald Trump over 100 times. You have Colangelo, who left a number 3 position in the Department of Justice to go down and specifically prosecute Donald Trump. Then you have an organization called the 65 Project, whose goal is to specifically target Republicans that have challenged elections, right? So you have this entire effort that is, by any definition, a malicious prosecution of political opponents. And then Republicans raise the idea of, well, I guess we're going to have to fight back the same way. And now it's, a threat to democracy or whatever.
How's Donald Trump the opponent of Alvin Bragg? What are they competing for? Because you said that he did a malicious prosecution. Also, yeah, but Alvin Bragg's not running against Donald Trump for anything. Also, the judge.
Why would you think that's the definition, that we have to be direct opponents in order for that to be a malicious prosecution?
No, because that was your statement, that he was prosecuting his political opponent. Now, the next thing is, yeah, but he's not.
Totally a political
yeah, but
opponent.
Hang on a second, Dwayne. Let's go back to that judge. How much was the contributions in total the judge made? What's the total number of dollars?
It's not much.
Yeah,
no, it's not a lot. It's like what, $25 or something?
$35 total.
35.
And what did Judge Marchand do before the trial? He took a step that's kind of important that, oddly enough, everybody leaves out. What was that step?
What is the step? I don't know.
Exactly. That's the problem with this, is that we come to these conclusions not knowing the step, not knowing that Judge Marchand actually filed an investigative report asking whether or not this would be a conflict of interest. He asked the Judicial Committee whether or not, hang on a sec, he asked whether or not this would be a conflict of interest and if he should be removed from the case. He asked them, and they came back and said no because of the amount. It was a Judicial Review Committee. He's asking the people in New York. He asked them before he ever sat on the case, and he asked, is this a conflict of interest? And they came back and said, based on the low amount and how far it was in time, we don't see a problem. Go ahead.
What would be an inappropriate amount?
I'm not on that committee.
I know, Bill, but you can't just say, well, because it's a low amount.
No, here's the issue.
Oh, and a bunch of judges in New York made this determination?
Oh, I'm sorry. You mean the Judicial Review Committee that's responsible for the judges in New York?
I can challenge that. Why can't I question that?
The people responsible and in charge made the decision. Now you're like, no, okay, fine, whatever. Again, hang on to that conclusion as hard as you can and keep breaking and bending facts as they come to you just so they fit. That's fine.
I just asked some questions, Billy. That's all I did.
Oh.
Go ahead, Dwayne.
Okay. Basically, what I would like is a elected official to just go ahead and go in and promise to take care of the law, go after anybody like Letitia and Alvin did, instead of saying I'm going to go after politician X. Just sit there and say I'm going to do my abilities to the best of my abilities as far as felonies and everything else to make things happen. I don't like that. Again, I think what they should do is just absolutely put them on the spit roast. But they're never going to impeach Biden. All they're going to do right now is between Hunter and everything else that's going on, they've got him lying to Congress between Bobulinski and his brother and Hunter. They're just going to make him look bleed. The problem is right now that it's going to be a problem because you have to watch out. If you start beating up on Biden too much, it's going to be like you're picking on an old man. You're kicking a dog when he's down. You have to be really, really careful on what we do from here on out.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thoughts.
Dwayne, I appreciate the thoughts. Thanks so much. Man, we've got full phone lines. Dwayne's line will be open 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text them on the 710 KNUS app. We'll get to those calls in just a second. I want to talk to you about Ultra Cur. Look, there's lots of curcumin products out there that they'll make you pay to try them, but not Ultra Cur. They believe so much in their product that they'll give you a free 3-day trial. All you have to do is visit any Denver Metro Natural Grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial of Ultra Cur. Ultra Cur is a patented non-prescription natural capsule. It works fast to relieve pain that could come from workouts, soreness, or just getting older, working around the yard. Surveys show that 50% of people using Ultra Cur find relief within 48 hours and half of those within 2 hours. Ultra Cur is fueled by patented technology. It gives you the true edge to support your peak wellness, energy, and active lifestyle. Get curious, Denver. Head to the Natural Grocers. Grab your free 3-day Ultra Cur trial with no strings attached. If you're wondering about the research, get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts. What do you think? Is the left engaged in lawfare against conservatives and the Republicans? And is it time for them to return the favor? Or are they just prosecuting criminals? And Republicans are criminals, so they're doing their job. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in Brussels, I'm William Denslow, and here are the top stories we're following. President Joe Biden is meeting Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky in Paris to discuss a new package of military support. At an event to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day yesterday, President Biden drew parallels between World War II and Ukraine's fight against the Russian invasion. Both leaders will also be in Italy next week for the G7 summit, where they'll hold talks on how to use frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine's war effort. The UN says a quarter of the world's children under 5 are living in severe food poverty. Haley Bianco reports.
A new report by the UN Children's Agency says 181 million children younger than 5 years old live in severe food poverty around the globe. That's more than a quarter of the world's youngest children. Africa's population of more than 1.3 billion people is one of the most affected, mainly due to conflict, climate, and rising food prices. The report defines severe food poverty as consuming nothing in a day or eating only 2 out of 8 food groups. Malnutrition can weaken the immune system over time, leaving children vulnerable to deadly diseases. While the UN urges countries to take action, it also says some progress has been made. In northern Nigeria, women are being trained to garden and cook with local produce.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm William Denslow in Brussels on Salem News Channel.
All right, true to form, we've got people just about everywhere on the text messages today. Some people liking me, some people liking Bill. Jay from
insults,
Louisville.
Come on, clowns.
Jay's a lawyer. He says some of the Trump attorneys have filed frivolous, non-substantive, waste of everyone's time, bad faith motions in cases. A lot of the election challenges suffered from procedural issues. They're bad attorneys. Here's a question I have for lawyers. So this is why I'm confused. When I watch like a criminal trial, the attorney for who was that guy in South Carolina that killed his wife and his son and all that stuff? I can see him. I don't know his name, but yeah. Yeah. And the attorney goes out there in the media and is like, my defendant is innocent. We are going to prove these charges are innocent. And then they're found guilty. But you don't see the attorneys like brought up on charges because they quote falsified information in the media based upon their clients. So
none of the attorneys in Project 65 and none of the attorneys so far are being charged for falsifying their statements in the media. No one so far. It's for what they filed in court and what they did. That's why they're being charged. That's why.
How would that be different than a defense attorney? Aren't they filing motions in court to support their defense?
Here's the problem. This is the issue. And this is why, again, despite all the text messages, all the other stuff calling me the names, this is why this falls apart. Because you can say a lot of things when you're outside in the media and in front of a camera. But once you get into court, there are evidentiary rules. You have to prove it. And so far, when the GOP lawyers that claimed all of this election fraud showed up in court, they couldn't prove anything. In fact, much of what they claimed in their filings was complete crap, had been disproved before, or were outright lies. That's not okay. You could, hang on a sec, you can come in as your defense attorney and say, my client is innocent because of this and this and this, but you can't come in and say, my client's innocent because that guy over there killed him. You've got to go at John Smith. John Smith is the killer, and he's the killer right now. You can't file that in court because that ends up being illegal. It's not true.
I feel like the defense makes that arguments all the time.
No.
There's somebody else, that it was this guy, that type of thing.
No,
and the courts hear them, and some courts go, well, yeah, you're right. And some courts go, well, you're wrong. And then everybody goes home.
There are evidentiary rules. We can get lawyers, and you can call Chris Murray, etc. He can't walk into court and lie. Can't do it. And that's what this was. This was a series of lies that couldn't be proven. If they have the evidence.
But isn't that why you have trials?
Yeah, that's why Fox News. That's exactly why Fox News was sued, because they were lying.
Yes,
but Fox News was lying. That's why they got sued.
Yes, to hear that and determine what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah, libel and defamation. And so far, Trump has been found liable for defaming E.Jean Carroll. And Fox News settled rather than go to court over the lies they told over Dominion.
Again, my point being,
yes, the lies. Yes.
Just because the defense attorney provides a vigorous defense, because you know that some of these defense attorneys know that their client's guilty. But anyways, they go out there and they try to do anything they possibly can.
Hang on a second. No, stop. A very good defense attorney doesn't ask you if you've done it or not. That's irrelevant. They're going to put together the best defense they can for you.
Right.
Every defense attorney that I know never asked their client, did you do it? Never. They never ask that. They put up a defense, and the defense, though,
because it's illegal to know they're guilty and make the argument, or why?
It compromises some of the things. Again, I'm not a lawyer. We can talk to defense lawyers, but you're making assumptions on evidentiary rules that aren't true. And that's the difference. Once you get inside of court, you have to be able to prove it. And all these statements about hackers and Hugo Chavez and everything else. You remember Sidney Powell? She's not been charged for getting out there and telling the crap about Hugo Chavez. She's being charged for the crap that she put into the actual lawsuits. The stuff that she filed in the court. You can't waste the court's time, and you can't come to them with BS. That's the issue. That's why they're being disbarred. Yes.
Iggy asked when you're taking the bar. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Frank, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Frank.
You know, you guys are still must be trying and be in contention for the best talk show host in Denver, because you keep asking these great open-ended questions. I think it's interesting, all this lawfare on both sides. I go back to The Higher Road. There was a book called The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck, who's a psychiatrist. and he tried to point out a higher way. Jesus tried to point out a higher way.
That's right.
And you see what it got him.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that Jeff Sessions might have been the wisest one in the beginning, because I think he saw all this coming and all this insolvable arguing that he didn't want to or think he could be a contributor to. You know, ever since all this has started with Trump, I kind of see all the politicians on both sides like a bunch of junior high school kids arguing back and forth. Obviously, the high road is the best, but then we're faced with a situation where one side is politically berserk and willing to use desperate tactics to aggressively go after their opponents. What do you do? How do you counter with that?
Yeah.
And then you have the example of the Middle East, where it's always been an eye for an eye. They didn't take Jesus's admonition of turn the other cheek. It's the eye for an eye. And what does that get you? A lot of blindness, you know. So I don't know. I hate to see where this goes. It was interesting. Dr. Phil was asking all these leading questions to Donald Trump, trying to get him to give a good answer. I think Dr. Phil has seen enough psychopathology to want the best for the people involved. But unfortunately, we've got some pretty nasty people doing crazy things with the lawfare system that leaves the opponents either no choice or the choice to leave it to the justice system, which you have to answer the question, has the justice system been compromised?
Yeah.
And
Frank, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. And Frank's line will be open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. My hope, and George Brockler talked about this the other day, is that you kind of want to return back to that statesmanship of working together to try to improve the country and the kind of Machiavellian destruction of your political opponent. Look, and to say that hasn't happened in American history just isn't right, because that has. But I think most people don't, to Frank's point, don't want to see this type of lawfare engaged or malicious prosecution from either side. Let's go to Tony. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Tony.
Hey, good morning. So I want to talk about the whole lawfare thing, but first of all, on all the attorneys that have been prosecuted, I mean, we kind of talked about this. They went into a courtroom and said they filed cases around fraud, and then got in there, and judges said, what evidence do you have? They did not have any, and those cases were dismissed, and those attorneys were warned. You know, you can't. Don't do that. You're in court now. You're not in front of Fox television cameras. The lawfare thing is a made up term in MAGA media world, and nobody in the country outside of that is even aware of this term. So the threat Tony, there's going to be.
You don't think that a guy bragging about prosecuting Donald Trump 100 times and I'm going to get elected on that? You don't think that's lawfare?
I didn't like that. But the fact is, they went into a courtroom and they made a case in front of a jury that included people who probably voted for Trump.
They were voting. That was 76% went for Joe Biden in that district.
Hold on. That's right. So then math, 80% of 12 is 9.6. 2.4 of them didn't. It only took one of them. But those 2.4 people also convicted him. Now, if the conviction was wrong, then the appellate court will overturn it. But even if the appellate court doesn't overturn it, then you're going to say the appellate court is crooked too. And as far up as it goes, if
those judges are donating to Donald Trump's opponent, I probably will.
Look. Tell you what, I'll come back to the radio after the appellate court gets a hold of it and see if they overturn it and why they overturned it. I doubt they're going to overturn it. It's probably not going to be overturned.
We'll have to see.
Tony, case the appellate court. Hold on, because there's evidence. There's two pieces of evidence that should tell you that you're going down a rabbit hole. Some 62% of the public right now believe Trump was guilty, and some 53% think he should withdraw from the race. Now, that's what America thinks in the aggregate. So this whole, if they believed it was lawfare, they wouldn't be saying that. So at least 64 and 53% respectively don't buy into lawfare.
Tony, I appreciate the call. And we've got to jump to a commercial break here in just a second. But when I see those numbers, I go, dang it. Democrats are going to continue to use lawfare because they, at the end of the day, get the polling wins. That's what it's all about. It's about election wins. And if you see this now in Arizona, they've got a big billboard, Donald Trump, convicted felon. That's what it was all about. All right, we'll get to Francis next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The question this morning, are Democrats engaged in lawfare against Republicans, and is it time for Republicans to return the favor? Or are we just spiraling down the end of America as we know it rabbit hole? Let's go to the phone lines. Francis, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS. Good morning.
Ahoy, mateys. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
We're starting off Friday spicy.
Well, it is going into the weekend. Everybody can simmer down for a day or two. It'll help. It's not a big deal. So, hey, I think there's a little bit of convolution on some of the stuff. I think the biggest problem with all of the Trump election suits and things like that is they weren't filed in good faith. There was no good faith basis or fact basis for filing them. The ones that at least got as far as getting to like a summary judgment type position were at least based on some really esoteric, not really supported legal arguments.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where I think a lot of the elector problems came into play. But otherwise, the stuff that was just kind of fact-based, we allege fraud, there was no proof of anything.
Francis, help me understand this, though, because I'm like, okay, all right, but that's why we have courts. Why the prosecution of attorneys after the fact and trying to strip them of their bar licenses because they tried to provide a vigorous defense to their clients?
I think it's completely wrong, and I think it's misplaced, and it is that is a form of lawfare for sure, because it isn't. I mean, look, an attorney can have a good faith basis and still be wrong. It happens all the time. Every
that's how I feel like most defense attorneys.
And it's not. When here's the other thing with the defense attorney problem is that these cases that were brought on the election stuff, I mean, it's the people bringing those cases who have a burden of proof. It's not somebody else to show otherwise, and that always showed up in these talk show arguments. Is that you can't prove me wrong? It's like proving that a ghost exists or something.
Yeah.
But in a prosecution situation, like a criminal prosecution situation, defense attorneys, I believe, and I defer to George Brockler about a lot of this stuff, but I think you get a little more leeway because fundamentally you're holding the state to its burden, which is beyond a reasonable doubt.
Francis, we're just out of time. Great call. Really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone for that conversation. When we come back, Greg Lopez is in studio. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
11 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center. Crazy. Somebody just called me a traitor on the text message line here.
Welcome to the club.
You know,
I get called that about once a week.
Right, left, center, and traitors. So it's a beautiful day in the greatest country.
You and I should get hats. Jeff and Bill Trader Club.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness.
We're gearing up for a whole nother hour. You're not going to want to miss with Greg Lopez. I was going to say George Brockler. Greg Lopez. He's on my mind, too.
Yep.
Greg Lopez in studio with us talking about his congressional race. He's going to represent Colorado District 4 if he wins, but from about July to January because there's going to be somebody else after that. So we'll get into what he plans to do with his office and how he plans to make a difference for conservatives and for the people of Congressional District 4.
Best job interview ever. I only need the job for 6 months. It's fantastic. Yeah. That is wonderful.
Well, and I'm going to ask him how he won, too, because it was kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
That line of argument got him the victory.
Very, very smart. Very politically savvy.
So we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. If you want to talk to Greg Lopez, ask him questions, give us a call, 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971. So grab your coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Let's check in on the Blake Olson News. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, TGIF, Trader Jeff and Billy, 65 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, if you're heading to the mountains this weekend, a new warning about possible large wet avalanches through Sunday. The Colorado Avalanche Information Center already recorded several on Wednesday, more than typical for early June. State park officials also making an official statement saying to always wear a life jacket because guess what? They save lives. 15 people have died on rivers and lakes so far this year, and it's still early in the season. Last year, there were 32 water-related deaths compared to a record 42 2 years ago. Former President Trump on with Dr. Phil. Will success be his retribution?
You said enough is enough.
That's garbage. We'll play that again. I'll try to clear it up before I'm done here, Billy. We'll hear from Dr. Phil and former President Trump soon here, if I can clear it up. President Biden in Paris this morning for a meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky. He and Hunter have had plenty of those meetings over the years, and Hunter's federal firearms trial continues today. His late brother's wife took the stand. She had a relationship with Hunter, and then he purchased a firearm and was strung out on crack. He's accused of illegally buying and possessing it. Now, London Roberts, mother of Hunter's 5-year-old daughter, spoke to Piers Morgan last night. President Biden doesn't acknowledge the granddaughter, but Roberts taking the high road. We'll try to have that sound coming up. Next hour.
Look, people beat up Trump all the time on, his faith and all that stuff. Here you have a guy that claims to be Roman Catholic, attends his church regularly, has a daughter granddaughter that's been proven through DNA is related to him and won't have anything to do with. Come on,
I know,
Joe.
but does it really surprise you with anything these people do?
I mean,
really?
That's your granddaughter. That is your granddaughter. That's crazy.
No, I hear you. No, I agree with you, but I mean, the guy barely knows where he is. I mean, let's see. Yesterday, you saw him reaching for the chair that wasn't there. Did you see that?
Do you think that
he
was
started
it?
to sit
People
down
were saying he was pooping too.
You know what? Either or. Either or.
He did kind of look like a toddler.
I'm
the
giving
toddler
him
in the corner.
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here and saying that it was an invisible chair, but it looked like what you were talking about as well. That was scary. Okay, let me see if I have Dr. Phil here.
What if when you win this election, you said, enough is enough? Too much is too much. This is a race to the bottom, and it stops here. It stops now. They've made a half a dozen or more major attempts to take you off the playing board, and you just said, it stops now. I am going to rise above this cycle of ugly, but I'm going to put this country as the shining city on the hill. I am moving forward. I'm not playing the retribution game. It stops with me. It stops here. What if you took that approach?
I'm okay with that. I am. I'm okay with it.
For the first time ever in history, Dr. Phil had like 1 minute question, and and Trump answered with a 3-second answer there. So good for him. He says no. All right. So here's London Roberts.
That was, during a time that I think the paternity suit had happened and the child support thing had not yet. And Hunter and I had not come to terms with things yet. And the advice that honestly I've been given from my attorney was that, grandparents don't normally step into a child's life until their child does. The father, steps in first. And I think that, Joe has sat back and waited for that to happen for Hunter before he was, feels that comfortable enough to step forward.
Okay, plenty of drama there. Authorities say an alleged Colorado drug trafficker has ties to Mexico's notorious Sinaloa cartel. The Larimer County Sheriff's Office and the DEA began investigating the man earlier this year, seizing pounds of meth and thousands of fentanyl pills from him in an undercover drug buy and drug buys. He faces a long list of drug trafficking charges and is being held by the Immigration and Customs enforcement. The Sinaloa cartel has been linked to several other drug arrests in Colorado in recent years and have poured through our open southern border. Hey, this morning, use this as an excuse.
Go nuts.
Homer Simpson has the right idea, and you should too. It's National Donut Day, and you don't have to look hard for deals. Krispy Kreme, Dunkin' Donuts, and lots of mom and pop shops around the country offering BOGOs and sweet deals. And it's oh so good. Deep fried dough covered in sugar and fat. Yes, it's going to be a good day. Coffee optional. I'm Bree Tennis.
Well, in that case, news brought to you by.
Wait, so I gotta stop this one here, okay? Yeah. And I need Jeff, and we're actually gonna bring Greg Lopez in on this one, okay? We're going around the table. National Donut Day. We're going around the table. What's your favorite donut? Blake, it's Blake Olson News. You gotta tell me it's everything in that glass case, everything your heart desires. What's the one donut you choose?
There's only one to me. Lamar's glazed.
Oh, just the empty one, the glazed one.
Raised glaze from Lamar's.
I like that. Yeah. Classic, nice and sweet, not too heavy.
Puffy.
Yeah, that's really nice. I have to do I have to do raised, not the cake. The cake are too heavy. The cake feels like I'm eating something. Yeah, it's like I'm putting some sort of like weight in my tummy. No. And my tummy's already big enough. I don't need that.
Now, horrible.
Oh, it is. Now, I have a hard time resisting the chocolate because it is just so basic. I love that.
True.
Yeah. Although I will do the glazed. The one that will tempt me though is the powdered sugar. But it's not based on taste. It's based on what the hell am I wearing and where am I going? Because I'm gonna make a mess. So if I have to be somewhere, I have to meet other people. I can't do it because I'm gonna show up looking like a toddler. Got stuff all over my face and things down my shirt.
Or you'll look like Hunter Biden.
Exactly. Yes. On a weekend bender. Eyes all wide from a sugar rush. I'm ready to go. All right. So, Jeff, your turn. What is your go-to donut?
Pink sprinkles, baby.
Just the sprinkles, but what the frosting?
Pink icing.
Oh, so you're a strawberry dude.
Yeah, the Krispy Kreme. My kids love that stuff, man. And it's not too far from us, so.
I love
pink sprinkles.
Now, that's unusual because you've stepped outside the box a little bit. You're taking a chance because there's a lot you don't know on that frosting.
What
you
are you
can hit chocolate
about
frosting.
That?
No.
I think there's a whole Simpsons episode where he's like, what kind of cupcakes
I love the
do you like?
adventure. I love the adventure because, that strawberry frosting, that can be really, really good or really, really bad. It's hard to screw up the chocolate. That's why it's a safe bet for me. You're taking a risk, my friend. I admire that of you.
The sprinkles.
All right,
our
Greg
guest.
Lopez, yes, our guest in studio, candidate for Congressional District 4. Your choice, donut. Remember, there are voters listening. No pressure.
You know what? I kind of like the chocolate.
Hey, high five.
Yes.
Excellent. Oh, thanks for indulging me, gentlemen. All right, Blake, back to you.
Oh, no, thank you. All right, I'll see you Monday. No. Let's see. News brought to you by Lora Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at LoraFireplacePatio.com. Celtics run past the Mavericks 107-89 in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Game 2 Sunday. Rockies beat the Cardinals 3-2 Thursday. And first pitch tonight in St. Louis, 6:15 NHL Finals tomorrow. Stanley Cup Finals in Florida. 61 in Broomfield, 62 in Centennial, 65 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue with the donuts Friday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll continue to be warm. Temperatures reaching a low 90s, sunny to partly sunny, but there will be late afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Lows tonight near 60. It's not going to be as warm. About 80 Saturday, a good chance for afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Lows upper 50s Saturday night. Only 70s to low 80s Sunday, late day thunderstorms. 70s, late day thunderstorms Monday, back to the 80s Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Janet saying raspberry Bismarck with powdered sugar. I have no idea what she's talking about.
Janet, go next level on me. Because that's the stuff where you get the jelly on the inside of the donut. So she's getting you the strawberry, and then she's getting me the powdered sugar. This is like a bridge over troubled waters here at the show. That's fantastic.
Billy and I
that's
come
next
back
level,
together.
Man. Yeah, donuts.
Iggy would love to hear you litigate. I think you'd be good.
Oh, I don't know about that.
He's also likes the old-fashioned sour cream.
Oh, the sour. Oh, that's interesting, man. That's an OG. I got much respect for you. That's something my dad used to do. That's cool. Nicely done.
Breadman, we have descended so far as a nation. He says Teddy Roosevelt's son and grandson landed at D-Day. Is that true?
I don't know.
Wow.
I just thought he was going to say we've descended so far as a nation. The donuts suck. I thought that was
now we have crackhead sons as of presidents. We no longer worthy of such valor, and neither presidential candidate served in the military. Dude, that's a really interesting point.
That's a good topic. We should
about
do that someday.
how in our electoral world, in the campaign world, that doesn't matter as much as it used to.
No, and in fact, I think that with some of the crazy Dems, it's a negative. I think they view it negatively. I mean, I'm talking the AOC wing, the squad.
Right.
They kind of look at, and it's really weird because that used to be the step you'd take. And it would be strange. And the example, again, we're going to go down a tangent here, and we can't do this because Greg Lopez is here in the studio with us. But the idea of DeSantis versus Trump. 20 years ago, DeSantis has a better resume.
Easily.
Exactly.
Former U.S. Navy SEAL.
Oh, yeah. He crushes them. But now, no, we got to do that someday,
my
friend.
It is amazing because look at like Gabe Evans, right? Gabe's running in Congressional District 8, and it's kind of like a secondary thing of him. You're like, no, where are you on the issues? Did Donald Trump endorse you? All that stuff. Exactly. Military service, and that's kind of sad.
I think so too, because
it's very sad.
The thing for me that I always admired military service for people that were going to take a political office is because, one, they have already raised their hand and sacrificed things for the country. And two, when you get into an instance of having to use the military, they understand what it's like on the other end. They don't just view it as, hey, let's get a bunch of people to go break stuff and kill people. Or, you know, that they look at it as what are going to be the impact on the average soldier having to do this? What happens to the family? What happens to them personally? What happens to everything around them? What's the economic benefit? What's the cost? There's a more of a, I would say, a hesitation. The people that I know that have been in war are the last ones that want to go back. So that's
you've
kind
seen
of
it. You've seen the hell that is involved with
we got to
it.
do that someday, my friend.
That is it is sad that has taken a backseat to a lot of other issues in our country. And I wonder too if it's because of people view the military. So you have a broader, like, conservatives who traditionally have said we love the military
Yeah.
are kind of going, oh, it's pretty woke in some ways now.
And you know
maybe it's not.
And on the other side, well, not other side, but also we have a generation, we talk about it. My kids, they're of a generation where they've seen us fight wars of choice.
Yep.
And
100%.
that's very dangerous. They don't like that at all. They don't have us, the view of us protecting,
defending,
the world.
or even our own existence, like in World War II.
Yep,
right?
exactly.
Right. Wow, we could definitely have that conversation.
I know we could.
Joining us in studio is Greg Lopez. You know that name. He's a regular in conservative circles. But if you don't know Greg, he's running for Congressional District 4 in a special election. Wait, what is going on here? We have a special election. Well, Ken Buck decided, I'm heading out, going to CNN.
Deuces, we're out of here.
Badmouth the president for whatever reason. But Ken Buck leaves abruptly, does not finish his term, and decides he's going to go somewhere else. So now there's a vacancy. Now we're going to have a regular election for that seat. Lauren Boebert's running, Mike Lynch, Jerry Sonnenberg, Deborah Flora, Peter Yu, Richard Holtorf. They're all running in that. That's a different election. Same office, different election. But we have about 6 months from essentially July to January that we need a representative in Congress. Greg Lopez raised his hand, went to the special vacancy committee, and was victorious. Let's talk about that experience. That was a little unique. You had people running in the general election that showed up for that. Jerry Sonnenberg almost got it, which would have given him a leg up, right? Because he would have already held the office. But you showed up as a bit of an outsider. Talk about that process, Greg.
You know what? It's great to be here, with you guys this morning, and I really enjoyed the conversation earlier because I am a veteran, and that's something that's very important to me.
That's great.
But, when we were in Hugo, Colorado, right, it's in Lincoln County, interestingly enough. And so I did go because I wanted to bring clarity and purpose to the special election. So I offered to the vacancy committee an opportunity to select someone that was not going to be running in the primary, that was not looking to go into the general in November, but really looking to fill the gap for the 6 months. And I tell people, look, I'm going on TDY. For military people, they understand what that is. It's a temporary duty assignment. And so when my nation called and said, hey, you need to look at whether you want to serve for 6 months, which is a TDY assignment in my mind, I said, you know what? I will definitely step forward. If the vacancy committee feels that I have the qualifications and I have the ability to do a congressman for 6 months, then I will do that. And sure enough, 6 hours later, in 6 rounds of votes, I was able to come and win.
And I was watching the vote count, and you were down near the bottom at the beginning. And then as people dropped out, they didn't endorse anybody other than you. So as those, and it was like watching compounding interest grow. And then eventually you crossed the finish line. And was it you and Jerry at the very end? Then?
Yeah, it was me and Jerry Sonnenberg at the very end, I ended up with 51 votes and he ended up with 46. So it was a close rust. But at the end of the day, Jerry and I are still good friends. He understands, I'm running for just a 6 month finish out the 118th, and he's working very hard to get into the 119th Congress.
Well, and it's not a totally unique strategy. It's what Abraham Lincoln did at the Republican convention that got him the nomination for president. There was a big debate over a number of people. And he showed up and said, I don't need to be anybody's first pick, but I'm happy to be everybody's second pick. Mm-hmm. And as the Republican Party was really debating vigorously at that Republican convention, and they weren't going to go with each other, they all of a sudden started to look over there and go, Abraham Lincoln looks like a good pick, and look what God did with him. Are you going to endorse in the general election primary?
Well, of course,
for Republicans.
Look, at the end of the day, right, on the same day that I get elected on June 25th, we will know who wins the primary.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So you're not going to endorse ahead of time now.
No.
Okay, so you're going to stay out of that.
Yeah, they're all friends of mine. I know them all well. I'm going to let them kind of make their own message. I don't want to make confusion or create chaos. Mm-hmm. The Republican Party has a lot of that going on right now. So I'm just going to make sure.
I will tell you, my sense on the ground is that Lauren Boebert's probably locked it up at this point. You don't have to comment on it. You're going to stay out of it. But, Deborah's been a good friend, and I thought early on that Lauren, with some of the personal issues, was going to have a real challenge here. But She really has emerged as a fighter. I have people that watch that Channel 9 debate that go, you know what? She was very bold, very strong. I want fighters in that CD4 position. They tend to be leaning towards her. So we'll have to see. Text me in. Tell me who you think is going to win Congressional District 4, or give me a call, 303-696-1971. All right, your opponent, Tricia Calavarsi. I'm going to try to get her on. I'd love to have her on the show, but she's the Democrat nominee. Are you better than Tricia to represent the people of Congressional District 4?
Well, first of all, you know, Tricia's only lived in Colorado recently. She was gone for about 5 years. She moved back to Highlands Ranch in October of 2023. You know, so there was even a legal challenge. Talk about legalities, right? There was a Democrat that filed a lawsuit against the Secretary of State saying that she did not qualify as a candidate because she hadn't lived in Colorado for a year. She hadn't been registered as a Democrat for a year. And so she really doesn't understand the district. She claims that she is the daughter of a district. Well, if you were born here in Colorado and you were born in Highlands Ranch, doesn't make you fully understand the complexities of the entire Congressional District 4. As you know, it's 21 counties, includes Douglas County, and yet it goes all the way up to Oklahoma. I mean, all the way down to Oklahoma, all the way over to Kansas, and all the way up to Wyoming and Nebraska. It's a huge district. And so I'm a firm believer that I have my hand on the pulse of what's going on out there. You know, when I ran for governor, I was out there all the time talking about water, talking about transportation, talking about what was going on with the education and so forth. So I fully believe that I am the most qualified to go out there, represent CD4 in the manner that it needs to be represented, and stand tall for our conservative values, which is exactly what CD4 is all about.
I will tell you that I think you've done very well with grassroots conservatives because, to your point, you've been out there on issues that are no real political benefit to you, but because you care about it. I run into you all the time at like pro-life events, and you'll go down and you'll wait and you'll testify at the state capitol on these issues. You'll wait 8 hours, 10 hours. You'll stay till that thing closes at 4 a.m. There's no cameras around. We're not even going to win the issue in this state, but you care so passionately about the sanctity of life. That's why I think when you showed up in Lincoln County at Hugo and you made the press, people or the push for the seat, people said, you know what? He is absolutely put in the time, not to benefit his career, but because he cares about the issues. Why does that matter in an elected official?
You know, I think people are really looking, they're thirsting for someone that's really wanting to represent them. You know, someone that truly cares, someone that wants to go all the way through to make sure that the issues get good discussion, that they don't back away from any pressure, any challenges. And again, they're not looking for the cameras. They want someone that they can connect with, right? Someone that they can relate with, that they can have a cup of coffee with and feel like, you know what? They truly understand our challenges. They truly understand the things that we're facing. Look, I come from humble beginnings, Jeff. You know, my mom and dad grew up working in the fields. My dad had a 6th grade education, never truly learned how to read and write. And my mom has a 10th grade education. I don't forget where I come from. You know, America is a great nation, and we need to save the republic and allow that American dream to exist. And it's vanishing. Look at the cost of living. Look at the younger generations not able to buy a home. We got to look at all that stuff and have good conversations. I liked earlier when you said, because, you know, we talk about statesmen. It's time to bring statesmen back into the political arena where we have good dialogue. We're not calling each other names. We're not saying everybody is a bad person. Let's talk about the policies. Let's talk about the impacts. And I think that's really what's happening with people are now like, you know what? We want someone that can understand both sides of the equation, look at what's in the best interest for everyone, and let's move forward.
So you only got 6 months in office. What do you do with those 6 months,
well,
Greg Lopez?
One of the things that, because I'm very familiar with the process, I'm already working as a congressman, talking to some of the existing congressmen about what we should do and how the things should move forward. The 2 big things that I'm going to bring forward is, again, the border, the crisis at the border, right? And also the national debt. One of the things that I'm looking to reintroduce, Jeff, there's a lady by the name of Helen Kriebel. out of Parker, Colorado. She's no longer with us, but you may remember that name. Helen Kriebel had a huge equestrian center. I helped her create the Colorado Horse Park, in that aspect. And then she created the leadership program of the Rockies. Well, what a lot of people don't understand that she was very involved in the immigration issues because she saw what was coming. So in 2006, she came up with a plan called the Colorado Red Card Solution, or I should say just the Red Card Solution. I'm dusting that off. There was legislation that was introduced. I'm dusting that off and reintroducing it. It's about a work permit program. This is not an amnesty. This is not a path to citizenship. This is about how do we get labor in and how do we make sure that government doesn't get in the way. It's a fascinating idea, and I'm going to champion that. I'm going to continue to introduce it because I believe that's part of the solution that's happening at the border. And I like what was talking earlier. People need to remember the cartel is very involved in what's happening at the border. This is not just individuals that are trying to get here because they want a better quality of life. The cartel is controlling the entire border as it pertains to who crosses and who doesn't. So this is something that people need to really pay attention to.
Are you going to support mass deportation?
I think there is a process by which we need to first understand why are you here? And this is where the red card comes in. If you want to work, you should have a red card. We're going to make sure that you have the ability to work and you're contributing to society. But I think the definition of what is mass deportation, right? It's kind of like mass shootings, right? They talk about anything more than 2 or 3 people, that's a mass shooting.
Yeah, but I think like Lauren Boebert, for instance, is saying you get here on a bus, we're taking you out on a bus. If you're here illegally, we're going to use ICE. We're going to use National Guard. We'll do whatever it takes. You're going home. Are you that bold on that?
Yes. Look, we need to make sure that people understand if you came here illegally and you're not here to help our nation grow, then yes, we need to make sure that you go back. Right now, the message that we're sending as a nation on our borders is everybody's welcome. No matter who you are, no matter whether you're a terrorist, no matter if you're a criminal, we want all of you. I think we do need to send a strong message that says we're a rule of law. And if you're breaking a law and we find out that you're not wanting to truly do the right things, then yes, we're going to put you.
Bill and I have had this conversation. Bill, feel free to jump in on this, but it all sounds good when Republicans say mass deportation. We're going to bus them out. We're going to fly them out. We're going to. I think that is going to work until you start getting those Ilian Gonzalez videos, right? You remember the little Cuba kid?
I do.
Right?
Yeah.
So are we going to take National Guardsmen with M16s kicking down doors to grab little kids and put them on buses and send them home? So that's where I think that starts to fall apart. But go ahead, Greg.
But let me give you a visual. I was just down at the border. I came back, flew from San Antonio just last night, or the day before. I had the 10:34 flight out of San Antonio. 80% of the people on that plane were illegal immigrants. They didn't speak English. And you could tell because the stewardess were having to kind of point to them the numbers. They were trying to explain to them the alphabet of where they should sit. We couldn't leave because there were 4 individuals sitting in the emergency exits that didn't speak English. I had to volunteer to move my chair to go sit in the emergency exit so that we could leave. And then when we landed, there was this lady that was blocking the aisle. People couldn't get out because she was waiting for her daughter that was sitting in the back, and she didn't understand English. The attendants were trying to talk to her, and they couldn't. Because I'm bilingual, Jeff, I raised my hand. I asked her, said, do you want me to translate? And they said, would you please? And I did. And I was able to encourage her to move out of the way so that people could get out of the plane. But here's what's happening. This is happening here in DIA, and they're coming in masses. That was one flight. And yet these people are given, and we have photos of the paperwork that says your hearing is in 2025. That's when they're supposed to show up to ICE to determine whether they're eligible to be here or not. So it really is an invasion. And if people don't pay attention, we need to.
So you can definitely stop people from coming, right? We're going to stop those airplane flights that Biden has approved here. Let's build the border. We're going to make it harder to come. All right. But the people here the people that have built lives here. We're willing to round them up and send them out. Greg Lopez.
Look, there is a process, right? We need to make sure that we systematically do this. It's not going to happen in 1 year. It's not going to happen over 2 years. It's going to happen over 4 or 5 years. Look, the idea is let's make sure we have the right people here that are wanting to work, that are wanting to create a good quality of life. I have no opposition to that, but we need to send a strong message that we don't want you to come here if you're not following the rules. America allows over 1 million people every single year through our immigration process, legally, 1 million. So it's not like we're not welcoming immigrants. We just want them to do it correctly. And when you look at how they're running across the border, our National Guard can't stop them. The Border Patrol is tied. Their hands are tied. There is a problem.
Now, Greg Lopez, candidate for Congressional District 4 in the special election, here with Jeff and Bill in studio. I want to follow up on the function of how you can deport mass deportations around the country. And what I'm seeing as a problem is Donald Trump talked about the fact that he wants to engage with local law enforcement. He thinks they are the best and first line to find out who these illegal immigrants are. And I believe he's correct in that. However, unsurprisingly, we have now heard from a number of different law enforcement agencies, mostly run by people of the other political party that are elected sheriffs, saying, I'm not going to participate, and saying it is not my job to do the federal immigration law. Of what I'm doing here in the community, of the purview, getting them out of here isn't my thing. So I want to know, again, how can it be done? Because I can't see any other way to do it. You can't send the FBI around the nation. You can't send National Guard around the nation based on the pure numbers. How do we accomplish a mass deportation if some of our law enforcement agencies aren't going to play along?
Billy, I grew up in Texas, and when I was growing up, I would say that the border states were actually the ones dealing with this. You probably don't know this word, a word called la migra. That's in Spanish. Okay. And la migra, when we used to have the Border Patrol go into corporations, into warehouses, and people would run out the back door.
Yeah.
Why? Because they knew they were here illegally.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's how we were identifying who they were back then. If we just go into any manufacturing plant, any business, and they know that, hey, if I get caught, I'm going to get deported, they will run.
Yeah.
Now, if they're here legally, they won't.
And they will, though. My experience, and I have been in work situations, again, this is completely and totally anecdotal, but I've been in work situations where there have been illegals and they've gotten in trouble based on some issues with either paperwork or falsifying or just being completely and totally dark, not being, in the country legally at all. And when that comes close, they left. Some have been deported. Oddly, a couple months later, they're back at work. And then the weird part for me is they're employed by the same company. And so where I'm going with this is, how can we, or I guess what I'm going to say is, rather than sending the Border Patrol into the business to look for the employees, why aren't they looking at the employer?
Well, I think that's a great approach, right?
Yeah.
And this is, if we had more time, that's exactly what the red car solution is all about. Okay, it's making.
Do we all get a red car?
No. I have one in my wallet, so I'll give it.
Oh, good.
But no, look, there is a process that we can do this and do it correctly, right? And do it in a manner where everybody understands. Look, if you have a job and you're here legally, we really want you to be a part of our communities. But if you're breaking the law, we need you to correct it, or we're going to send you back. I think that's really a reasonable approach. I think most Americans are recognizing that. What's happening with the Venezuelans, now I live out in Elizabeth and Kiowa. You're starting to see them in Kiowa. You're starting to see them in Elizabeth. There's not a whole lot of work.
We don't see anybody in Kiowa. There's nobody out there. And all of us, it's like cows and now Hispanics.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, Greg, I got one more thing, though. One more thing, Greg. Actually, when we come back.
Yeah.
When you come back, what I want to, later in the show, we are going to talk to a representative from the Heritage Foundation. And she's going to say, Biden's current immigration policy based on the border shutdown is nothing but bunk, but I want to find out what you think of it in a sec.
We're talking with Greg Lopez, candidate for this special election in Congressional District 4. We'll continue with him. He's in studio. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show. By the way, Mike Lynch just texted me, wanted to let me know he was in the military 7 days out of high school.
Oh, my man.
We got to get Lynch on here.
Yeah, we got it, man.
All right, Mike, we got to get you on,
Yeah,
buddy.
come in.
All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in Brussels, I'm William Denslow, and here are the top stories we're following. Donald Trump's former chief of staff is scheduled for arraignment today in the Arizona fake electors case. Mark Meadows, along with 17 others, was indicted earlier this year for trying to overturn the 2020 election results in the state. Tony Waterman has more.
Mark Meadows is expected to plead not guilty, just like all of the other defendants in this case have done. He faces conspiracy, fraud, and forgery charges, and his lawyer has called the Arizona indictment blatantly political. The charges stem from a falsified document sent to Congress declaring Trump the victor in Arizona in 2020, even though Joe Biden won the state by more than 10,000 votes. Similar criminal cases are being pursued in 4 other states. In Austin, Tony Waterman, Salem News Channel.
President Joe Biden is meeting Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky in Paris to discuss a new package of military support. At an event to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day yesterday, President Biden drew parallels between World War II and Ukraine's fight against the Russian invasion. Both leaders will also be in Italy next week for the G7 summit, where they'll hold talks on how to use frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine's war effort. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm William Denslow in Brussels on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Greg Lopez is in studio. Greg's running for the special election in Congressional District 4. He's the Republican nominee. So if you live in Congressional District 4, you're going to get a ballot like I did in the mail the other day. And on it is going to be a Republican primary for, I guess if you're a Republican or independent, you'll get this type of ballot. And it'll have the Republican primary with like Lauren Boebert, Mike Lynch, Jerry Sonnenberg, Deborah Flora, Peter Yu, Richard Holtorf. And then you have to flip it to the back and you'll get a second ballot or the backside of the ballot for the special election where you're running against a Democrat, Frank Atwood. He's a friend. He's running there as well, but he's we won't get into Frank. All right, but you're going to be on that, and it's important for people to vote on that, right?
It
so
is.
You want to talk about that?
It's very important. You know what? This is the second time in Colorado history, Jeff, that we've had a vacancy in Congress. And so it's very important because right now, 742,000 people in CD4 do not have a voice in Congress. And that's just wrong. And that's why we need to fill it. And that's why, it's important for them to go the entire ballot, whether it's at the bottom or on the back. They need to vote on the special election so that they can have a voice in Congress.
Because there could be a Democrat
that
true. Represents, at least for 6 months.
Yep.
Billy, you had a question for Greg just as we went to the commercial.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the immigration discussion. Recently, Joe Biden said he's going to close down the border, 250 cross a day, 2,500 crossings. Then he's going to shut it down. We're going to have an expert from the Heritage Foundation joining us in the 9 o'clock hour. Want to know your opinion on this Biden plan. Is it going to help at all? Is it misdirected, or is it too little too late?
It's not going to help at all. Look, you know what? He should have done something more bold earlier on. It's been a crisis. It's a political spin. Hey, listen, I am going to close something down. I am going to, after a certain number, but he's not talking about how many different entry points. Is it 2,500 for the entire border, or is it just one section? So I think people need to understand that this is not really a solution. It's more of a political statement.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that he is just trying to say, wait, me too. Yeah, he's trying to catch up at the end and trying to take the issue off the table from Republicans because he knows that's his biggest weakness. I would agree.
The dude put Kamala Harris in charge of the border.
Oh, absolutely. But again, this is the funny part about it. And think about how bad the strategy has been from the Biden White House on the border from Jump Street, because they put Kamala Harris in charge, and then it's months until she eventually views the border. I mean, months and months go by. And even as Republicans were accurately saying, why isn't she looking? Why is she looking? How easy would it have been for the White House to just put her on a plane, go down there and do the smile and handshake thing? They could have done it, but no, not at all.
Do you think that
ridiculous.
It's stupidity and negligence, or do you think it's deliberate at this point?
I think it is stupidity and negligence, and this is the only reason why, is I feel that when they were coming out of the Trump administration, they felt that there was such a blowback on the Trump immigration policies. They were going to be the other side. We were going to be the sunshine and the kittens and the cookies and the hugs and the love. And that's what they went with. And I guarantee you.
Sounds like Mike Johnson.
I know. But here's the thing is, I guarantee you that if we could put the Biden administration in a time machine, and they could have seen in 2020 and 2021 what the issues are going to be this year, they would have done something. I'm not saying they would have done the right thing, the correct thing, or it would have helped. They would have done something. They would have gone out on stage and at least tried the soft shoe dance. They would have tried to tap dance their way around something. They would have. And that's why I think they're trying to do it now. It has been ignorance and stupidity. But I do believe that in part, you're right, that because of that change after Trump, they were looking to make it more open. Absolutely.
It's interesting, really, because you mentioned ignorance and stupidity.
Yeah.
And this is our border.
Yes.
This is something that we can go to very quickly. So what does that mean when they're dealing with international issues or bigger issues? I mean, if you can't put your hand on the pulse of what's happening in your own border, there's a lot of questions about what can you do.
Greg, you make a really, really good point on that one. And it's the idea of how do they sort priorities? If they can't figure out inside the White House that the border is a priority and it took them this dang long, what does it mean when we get into something that may be bigger? What happens if the Israeli conflict starts a conflagration across other countries inside the Middle East. What happens if Russia decides, Turkey looked good and tries to go that way? Are we going to trust the guy that's sitting there right now to make those decisions based on his previous set of priorities? Good point.
Greg Lopez, want to ask you, you met with Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House. What did you guys talk about?
It was a great meeting. Lisa and I, my wife, we had a meeting with him. He talked about, hey, Greg, I'm really happy that you're going to be joining us. We talked about the committees.
Yeah, what committees?
Right now I'm looking to sit on the same committees that Representative Ken Buck sat on, the Judiciary Committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee, because he understands, look, we need to make sure we have consistency. We need to make sure that we are looking at things from a broader perspective. And with my background, being with the Small Business Administration, a Hispanic American small business owner, that I can bring a different perspective to the conversation. It's for 6 months. So why change it? So we talked about that. We talked about the upcoming issues that he was facing at the time, right? The whole thing about a potential vote to vacate the speaker position. So we had some real good.
Would you vote to vacate Mike Johnson?
No, I would not. I think it's important for us to be statesmen. Let's evaluate what we're doing here, right? Let's not look at the short term. Let's look at the long term. Now, there are some questions that I had on some of the things that he did, but you know what? Until you sit in that chair, you're not sure exactly what's going on.
Well, part of that debate was, and that vote was over Ukraine funding. Would you have voted for the Ukraine funding?
No, I wouldn't have. Because again, we have to protect our own border, right? Here's the thing. It's not about whether, if you notice, they're always asking for more money. Why don't we reallocate money? If we really think we need to do something let's just reallocate it. We're $35 trillion in debt, and it goes up by $1 trillion every 100 days. If they're serious about helping, let's move some money around. We have to do it in our daily lives. When we have something that we didn't plan for, when we have something that we weren't expecting, we have to reshift our priorities, like Billy was saying earlier. So those are the types of discussions we should be having.
Now, Lauren Boebert did not vote for Ukraine or Israel funding. Would you have voted for the Israel funding package?
Based on, and I haven't really looked at the package internally, but, based on what she's sharing, what I would not, if there is 900 billion, I think it is 90 billion going to Hamas, that's a problem, and so we need to be smart. Look, Jeff, I printed the omnibus bill that had the $1.2 trillion in the budget. If I should have brought it with me, there is.
I don't think it would have fit through the door.
I tell you, there is no spreadsheet. There is no Excel. It's paragraphs.
Right.
Yeah, it's just specific paragraphs. Doesn't tell you how they're going to be spending it. Doesn't tell you for what number of equipment they're going to be buying. And so I'm looking at that and saying, truly, this is how Congress passes a budget based on a narrative? Imagine you just saying, I need $178 billion so that I can continue to buy office supplies, that I can continue to have the equipment that I need. There's no specifics as to what that equipment is. And yet that's what they're going to give you money on. So there's a lot that we need to work on.
Would you vote for a national abortion ban?
That's something that I'm struggling with, but I'm going to say probably if I was forced to vote, I would say yes.
Why is that a struggle? You're one of the most pro-life guys I know.
I know, but here's the thing, right? Government, to me, sometimes when they interfere to an extent, we got to be careful, because what does that mean in the long term? But that's what I'm saying. For me, the Constitution, the 10th Amendment, right? Nothing in the Constitution gives the federal government the opportunity to actually interfere in people's lives. That is the 10th Amendment. But if it was brought to me to be a part of a decision, I would vote for it. But I really believe in the Constitution. I don't support what's going on here in Colorado at all. But that's the people voted. So we got to refine our moral compass. Where are we as a nation? When we don't value life in the womb, we got to be very careful what that sends a strong message. At what point does man decide life is worthy of preservation or not? So,
talking with Greg Lopez, he's a candidate for the special election in Congressional District 4. He's the Republican nominee. When we come back, I'm going to ask you, you got 6 months. Obviously, you're going to do what Mike Johnson wants you to do. You're going to do what the constituents of Colorado want you to do. What's the special project you're going to take on for your own heart, for what God has called you to do with that office? We're talking with Greg Lopez. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. All right, Greg, we only got about a minute left. We talked Mike Johnson. By the way, Greg Lopez is in studio as a candidate for the Republican Congressional District 4 special election. Personal project. What are you going to do with your time in Congress, 6 months, make a difference for the time God gave you there?
Well, here's the one thing I'm going to focus on: constituent services. The people in CD4.
I know we'll talk about constituent services and all that, but I only got 20 more seconds with you. What are you going to do? What's the project you want to do?
I'm going to be working on the border and bringing clarity and statesmanship to every discussion that I'm a part of. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I want to bring back.
The border's the big one.
Yeah. But I want to bring back the ability for people to understand we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
But we got to focus on what's in the best important for the nation. That's what we were sent there for. And so that's what I'm going to do when I walk into a room. I want people to understand this guy's a statesman. He's coming in. When Greg says something, we should listen to what he has to say.
Greg Lopez, his website, greglopez.co. If you want to learn more about him, greglopez.co. Thanks so much for being in the studio.
Yeah, thank you.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Dave Williams is next.
I got a button. You didn't get a button. He didn't give you. Oh, Sure, now you're not even putting it on. You're not like me.
I don't know. I don't know these rules. Am I allowed to? Or am I breaking rules by endorsing a candidate?
Have you met me? Rules? That's not what this show's about, my friend.
Who has the largest HR file in Salem?
That would
It's
be me.
Billy Thor.
Yes, especially the honored ballot. That is absolutely me by a long shot. Absolutely.
8 a.m. in the Mile High City, and you have tuned in to the Bill Show 710 KNUS. It is Friday, June 7th. And I'm your co-host, Stefan, along with Bill Thor, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and most of the time, pretty crazy. Beautiful day in the greatest country in history. And we're gearing up for a whole another hour of engaging discussion, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard, loud and clear. You're not going to want to miss this hour. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. In the previous hour, we're hosting Greg Lopez. Great conversation with him. You missed it, go to 710knus.com. Download the podcast. His website again, GregLopez.co. Republican nominee up for a special election in Congressional District 4. Coming up just after the news, the chairman of the Colorado Republican Party, Dave Williams, is going to join Jeff and Bill Show. We're going to talk about what can only be described as a nuclear bomb email he sent out.
Wow.
God hates pride. A lot of media coverage about this one. Well, first question, why was he thinking, or what was he thinking when he sent out the email? What was his vision? What was his plan?
Yeah, but also tons of coverage. So, the
tons of
idea,
coverage. That's right.
is necessarily all bad press bad. So there, could some of the message that Dave communicated inside of that email resonated with some of those voters that weren't sure as to whether or not the Republican Party was what they wanted it to be. Let's see.
What'd you think of that email? God hates pride. Text us on the 710 KNUS text line or give us a call, 303-696-1971. Very grateful. The chairman of the Republican Party, Dave Williams, will be joining us to talk all about it. Let's jump into the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, button. Who's got the button? Remember that one, Billy?
Oh yeah, I played that.
Yeah, I know you probably did. I was
Absolutely.
kind of surprised. I don't think Jeff probably played.
No, the only buttons he played with were the ones in the video games. But again, a little jealous because video games are great. When you and I grew up in the little, they sucked.
What's a
for while.
video game?
Yeah, exactly.
73 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
I'm a firm believer that I have my hand on the pulse of what's going on out there. When I ran for governor, I was out there all the time talking about water, talking about transportation, talking about what was going on.
Greg Lopez filling the void for Republicans in CD4 in the special election before the big election in Congressional District 4. Lopez joined Jeff and Bill in studio last hour. Illegal immigration is a huge issue, and Lopez says he supports deportation as long as there's a process.
America allows over 1 million people every single year through our immigration process, legally, 1 million. So it's not like we're not welcoming immigrants. We just want them to do it correctly. And when you look at how they're running across the border, our National Guard can't stop them. The Border Patrol is tied. Their hands are tied. There is a problem.
Lopez said he was on a flight from San Antonio last night, and he estimated 80% of the passengers were illegal. Authorities say an alleged Colorado drug trafficker has ties to Mexico's notorious Sinaloa cartel. The Larimer County Sheriff's Office and the DEA began investigating the man earlier this year, seizing pounds of meth and thousands of fentanyl pills from him in undercover drug buys. He faces a long list of drug trafficking charges and is being held by immigrations and customs enforcement. The Sinaloa cartel has been linked to several other drug arrests in Colorado in recent years and have poured through our open southern border. Speaking of drugs, Hunter Biden's federal firearms trial continues today. His late brother's wife took the stand. She had a relationship with Hunter when he purchased the firearm and was strung out on crack. He is accused of illegally buying and possessing it. Now, London Roberts, mother of Hunter's 5-year-old daughter, spoke to Piers Morgan last night. President Biden doesn't acknowledge the granddaughter, but Roberts is not angry with the president or Hunter, who still hasn't met his 5-year-old daughter.
No, I was not angry with him. I mean, like I said, I've given Hunter a lot of grace, and Hunter was in a dark place during that time. And I saw that. And throughout the book, you know, most people don't know me, but it describes my empathy for people. And I felt for Hunter. And I knew that he was going through a hard time.
Okay, there will be a test on all this after the show, if you can remember all of that. President Biden in Paris this morning for a meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky. He and Hunter have had plenty of those with Zelensky over the years. A Centennial man has been arrested on suspicion of DUI, vehicular homicide, following a deadly crash in Lakewood. It happened Wednesday when a truck driven by 37-year-old Ilya Slavin collided with a car. The 65-year-old woman driving the car died in the crash, and a passenger was taken to the hospital with multiple injuries. If you're heading to the mountains this weekend, a new warning about possible large wet avalanches through Sunday. The Colorado Avalanche Information Center already recorded several Wednesday, more than typical for early June.
Go nuts.
It's National Donut Day. Go out and buy as many as you can and eat as many as possible. The Celtics run past the Mavericks 107-89 in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Game 2 on Sunday. Rockies beat the Cardinals last night 3-2. They're back at it tonight at 6:15 first pitch in St. Louis. NHL Stanley Cup Finals tomorrow in Florida. 67 in Superior, 70 in Parker, 73 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. TGIF. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll continue to be warm. Temperatures reaching a low 90s, sunny to partly sunny, but there will be late afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Lows tonight near 60. It's not going to be as warm. About 80 Saturday, a good chance for afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Lows upper 50s Saturday night, only 70s to low 80s Sunday, late day thunderstorms. 70s, late day thunderstorms Monday, back to the 80s Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Ande in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So a lot of times when controversy happens, politicians run and hide. They don't want the limelight. We would oftentimes try to get Democrats to debate anything, even stuff that's not controversial.
Yeah, like what color is the sky? You're like, I don't know about that one.
Tim Hernandez has actually blocked me on Twitter. So
that's mature.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think I even said anything about him. It was a preemptive block that came from Timmy Hernandez. But big emails sent out by the Colorado Republican Party at the start of Pride Month in June called God Hates Pride, and it has generated a ton of controversy. In fact, there was a question brought before candidates recently in the Congressional Ford debate, I think, on Channel 9 News. But Dave Williams, the chairman of the GOP, willing to step up and stand and defend his emails, and he joins us on the show today. Chairman, so grateful you're taking time to join us. Thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. This is an important topic, especially this month. We need to have these conversations. If we're afraid to talk about it, then our enemies are going to win, every time. So let's talk.
So let's dive into it. The title, God Hates Pride, you wrote this: the month of June has arrived, and once again, the godless groomers in our society want to attack what is decent, holy, and righteous so they can ultimately harm our children. Above is a great sermon from Pastor Mark Driscoll titled Black and White in a Rainbow World. Warning, do not watch if you're easily triggered or intolerant of the gospel of Jesus Christ, like Kyle Clark from 9 News. Here's a short excerpt of the sermon to consider. Progressivism is a demonic lie. God doesn't need to improve his message because he got it right the first time. Unlike those of us who think there needs to be progress, there doesn't need to be progress. There needs to be obedience to perfection, and that is the word of God. Chairman Williams, I've worked with the state party in the past, was an employee of them. And so I know there's a process by which you're going to figure out what you're going to message out. What was the reasoning behind sending out this message, God hates pride?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I've been thinking about this for a while now. Last year, I sent out an email against pride, and of course, I included that in this email. It's the previous email below that one. But for the longest time, we've been dealing with an agenda that wants to harm children, that wants to harm and undermine parental authority, and confuse kids into, thinking that they can be the opposite sex for which they were assigned at birth. And that stuff is destructive, and it's even worse than that. And if you look at the previous email that I sent out last year, it showed what pride has devolved into. You have grown men who are nearly naked or naked dancing in front of children. You have them encouraging children to dress up in drag and perform for adults. You have them actually participating in striptease type dances with drag queens, where they're actually putting dollar bills into the G-strings of these sickos. The reason why evil advances and progresses in our country is because we have passive leaders or passive men that would rather stick their head in the sand than simply say, no, this is not right. This is not what we should be doing, and we need to oppose it. So at a certain point, I said, you know what? This isn't what I was called here to do. I'm not called here to stay silent. This is a terrible thing, and we need to finally call a spade a spade. We need to oppose these people that want to ruin our society, that want to glorify things that eventually are going to lead to the normalization of pedophilia. That's exactly what's going on, and that's why you have this movement right now to expose it, because if we don't expose it, you're going to have people finally going to where they want to go with this agenda, and that's encouraging the removal of age of consent laws. We can't allow this to continue, otherwise we're going to pay the price.
Now, Valdemar Archuleta, Republican candidate in Congressional District 1, felt very hurt by this email. He's the chairman of the Colorado Log Cabins, as well as other gay Republicans. Felt targeted, felt like it was demeaning. What's your response to them?
Well, look, they can feel how they want to feel, but I don't really see them standing up to this pride, what pride has become. If they had spent more time going against these people that are trying to harm our children or trying to change our society and normalize things that shouldn't be normalized, then maybe I wouldn't have to say anything. But I find it very weird that when I stand up and say something about it, instead of joining me against these people that are trying to harm our children, they want to go run to the media and try to grab attention saying, oh, that's not me, that's not me. What that tells me is that they're afraid of cancel culture. What that tells me is that they can't handle, the fight. And so, look, I respect those guys. If they didn't like what I said, so be it. But that's not the point. The point is we're going to stand up against this agenda, and if I'm the only one to do it, so be it.
Now, the National Republican Party has it in their platform that marriage is between one man and one woman. They're committed to that. Is there room in the Republican Party for the LGBTQ community?
Look, if anyone wants to help us limit government and remove burdensome regulation and, ensure that we empower citizens as opposed to government bureaucrats, then anyone's welcome in this party. This is not, an exclusionary party as I think the Democrats or the media would try to paint us. But, at a certain point, we do got to stand for some basic truths. And the truth is we can't be allowing an agenda that's going to undermine parental rights, that's going to undermine normal behavior, and one in which that will lead to the grooming of children and the removal of age of consent laws.
Now, one of the critiques was that this email was compared to the Westboro Baptist Church that would not say God hates flags, but God hates another word. And was the point to connect the Colorado GOP to organizations like the Westboro Baptist Church?
Of course not, but I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that the media, the Democrats, everyone that supports Pride is trying to engage in that type of deflection, because they don't want you looking at the actual issue. Nowhere in that email did we say we hate anyone. We hate Pride. We hate what the agenda that's behind it. And yeah, we encourage folks to resist it. In fact, there's this good news story that you guys should look up. There was an Idaho bartender who decided to have a heterosexual awareness month, or celebration month. And he's been receiving tons of support, tons of business, because so many people are upset with this agenda. It's so in your face that you can't even take your kids to a normal event without them trying to indoctrinate or peddle this garbage. The people are upset with this, and we look forward to this debate, because ultimately we know that the people are on our side, and certainly God.
To that point, I think Dave Williams, chairman of the Colorado Republican Party, this was an email that was bolder than anything that most pastors would send out in Colorado. Are you utilizing your position to push your religion? And is that fair for the chairman of the Republican Party to push his personal religious values through an entire blanket email list like that?
Well, I make no apologies for my faith, and I say this often at speeches and discussions that I have publicly. Like, look, I'm a Christian. I make no apologies for it. My faith informs me of, not only what I do personally, but what I do publicly and in the workplace. So we make no apologies about it, and I don't want to be an apologetic necessarily on this goal. We can talk about the truth of God, if you will, but there is absolute truth, and ultimately that truth can only be found in the Word of God.
Now, the Colorado electorate has elected a gay governor by pretty good margins now twice. Is this email, God Hates Pride, going to help Republicans win in a state that seems to be fine electing a gay governor?
Well, I mean, time will tell, but ultimately, I guess we don't care, because if we don't say something, we're going to continue to lose. I mean, this is how we've lost Colorado. This is how we've, in many ways, lost many of the important debates around our country, because we don't talk about it. We don't debate on it. We cede the discussion to our enemies because, consultants or pundits or, those who think they know, don't want to actually engage in something that makes them a little bit uncomfortable. Evil does not stop unless people get in the way and say something about it. So are we going to lose because of this? Well, I don't know, but I'll tell you what, we're going to lose if we don't talk about it. That's for sure.
And do you think it'll win from your perspective?
I think we can win. And the reason I think we can win is because I don't know of anyone that supports the chemical castration of children or the genital mutilation of children. In fact, you have people like Bill Maher. Bill Maher is not some Republican. He is a liberal, old school Democrat who thinks this is the most crazy thing in the world. We also have people like Joe Rogan, who's certainly not a Republican, who supports us too. I mean, the voters are on our side on this issue. I don't know why in the world we have weak Republicans that want to stick their heads in the sand and not talk about something where the vast majority of people agree that we shouldn't be confusing children and allowing them to engage in procedures that are life-altering, especially when you compare it to other things that we don't allow them to do, right? Why in the world would we allow children to take puberty blockers when we don't allow them to smoke? We don't allow them to get tattoos. We don't allow them to engage in contracts. This is craziness. People will support us if we just have the courage of our conviction and are bold about how this is wrong and why they should reject it.
I'd love to get a sense internally of what the response was like this. I saw Babylon B, for instance, basically called you guys based because you're so bold on this. And you even called for the burning of pride flags. Has there been donations? Have there been angry emails? Give us an internal or a picture internally of what's happened to the Republican Party since you sent out this email.
We've had an uptick, certainly in volunteer requests. We've had an uptick in donations. We've certainly had our fair share of people sending in hate mail, but they're not Republicans. They're all liberal progressive Democrats. We've had many within the transgender activist movement or the Pride movement as well send in hate mail. So I guess it depends, right? If you support Pride, if you support that agenda, yeah, we got our fair share of hate mail and hate messages. But if you are a rank and file Republican or just a normal person, we've got a lot of positive feedback and response.
Dave Williams, candidate for Congressional District 5 and chairman of the Colorado GOP, joining Jeff and Bill. We're talking about the email that raised quite a storm earlier this week. Dave, you talk about, you make the conclusion that the members of the LGBTQ community are groomers. Walk me through that conclusion. How do you reach that conclusion?
No, I think the conclusion we made is that Pride right now is trying to groom children. And if you don't believe me, look at the pictures below. If you don't
explain to me the process. What do you mean by grooming children? Because grooming is, especially because we're talking about it in a sexual nature, you're talking about grooming children and making them ripe for abuse. That is quite a loaded statement to make based on the pictures that you showed. Help me with that conclusion. How are you coming to it, please?
Yeah, because when children are being when adults are dancing in front of children naked, when they're trying to talk to them about sexual things as opposed to what a normal child should be, talking about or thinking about, when you have grown adults trying to encourage them not only to participate in viewing drag events, but even dancing in drag events, when you have progressive public school institutions that are actively promoting this agenda and trying to get them to think more and more about sexuality, the only conclusion you can come to is that they're trying to get them and recruit them into engaging in deviant sexual behavior.
Interesting. Got a question for you. How many people involved in drag shows or drag queens have been arrested in the last 3 years for molestation or child pornography charges? Roughly, what do you think?
I don't have that statistic off the top of my head, but we're sure. I'm happy.
Do you think it's going to be smaller or larger than those involved in the clergy, those involved in regular business, those involved in government? What's your sense? Larger or smaller? Just guess.
I'm not sure, Bill. I'm not sure why whataboutism matters here. Who cares?
It's not whataboutism, man. It's not whataboutism. What I'm doing is
whataboutism, Bill.
Crap. That's not at all. No, it's not. No. It's not whataboutism. No,
Bill, you want to point out.
No, Dave. Dave, the issue is you're coming to you're coming to a conclusion. Dave, you are coming to a conclusion saying that they are groomers, and the percentage of the people that are doing the groomers are not drag queens.
All right, let's let Dave answer. Let's let Dave answer. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Bill. Look, you get to ask the question, I get to answer it. Let me tell you what my answer is. You are trying to downplay the problems that we're seeing within the Pride Month by saying, look, other institutions are guilty of doing these things. Okay, fine. Prosecute them, arrest them, and demonize them. That's not the point. They are actively trying to indoctrinate your children, confuse them, and ultimately remove age of consent laws.
Indoctrinate them into what?
Bill, tell me, is it appropriate for a grown man to be dancing naked in front of a child?
Indoctrinating them into what?
Bill, they want them to join. They want
join what?
To join them in their deviant behavior.
Okay, so
Bill,
so Dave, so I'm asking
Bill,
you.
No, Bill, I told you they are trying to indoctrinate them into their lifestyle.
Okay, here's the problem. Here's the problem you have with your conclusion, Dave, is one, you're talking about them being groomers. The sexual abusers out there are not inside the LGBTQ community. The vast majority of them are not. There's a fraction of a percentage in the drag community that could be considered any sort of abusers at all. You're sitting here and you're making it a much bigger problem than it actually is. And the issue being is that you're talking about these kids as if the kids seeing someone in front of them dance and dance and dance makes them gay, which is really, really strange. Hang on.
No, that's not
Dave.
what I'm saying.
Yes, it is, Dave. Yes, it is, Dave. Yes, you said that they were going to indoctrinate them to have them participate.
You're twisting these words again.
I'm using the words you used.
You're not even answering my question.
What?
Why is it acceptable for a grown man to be dancing in front of children naked and encouraging them to also perform in that same manner?
Can you show me, Dave, to be fair, Dave, can you show me anywhere where a grown man is dancing naked?
Yeah, he literally has those those pictures in the email.
Hang on a sec. Wait, hang on a sec.
Look in the
wait,
email.
Hang on, Dave. I saw the email, but I saw people that were not totally naked. I saw people that were scantily dressed. And again, hang on a sec. Wait, in that instance, in those pictures, I think that's inappropriate. If I was the parent there, if I was someone involved, yes, that is inappropriate. However, what I disagree with based on your conclusion is it doesn't make the kid gay. That's the issue. The thing is, you're assuming this.
That's not what I'm. That's not the argument.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Dave. Because just a
No,
second
it's
ago,
not.
Dave, a
That's
second
not the
ago,
Hold on,
you said,
let him finish.
that is not the argument I've been making, Bill. And I
Okay.
know you want to. I know you want to twist it because you want to mix it up and make the interview interesting. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that their lifestyle is one of hedonistic sexual behavior. Whether or not, look, if a grown woman was dancing in front of a child to try and get some sort of sexual high out of it or sexual pleasure out of it and encourage them to participate, that would still be wrong. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is sexualizing children and getting them to engage in behavior that is ultimately going to lead to trauma and harm for them and harm for the society. This is what's happening right now, where we are trying, not we, but a corrupt agenda is trying to get them to change who they are and engage in sexual activity that is just wildly inappropriate for children. If you want to do that as an adult, go do it. But why in the hell do we have to allow people to talk about these weird sexual deviant behaviors in front of children and even encourage it? That's the craziest thing in the world. And I can't even believe you're defending it.
The thing is, what I'm doing is I'm disagreeing with your conclusions. Just there in your statement, you said that one, the people performing there finding some sort of sexual gratification doing it in front of the kids. You can't prove that in any way, shape, or form, but it's an assumption based on your prejudice. Dave, hang on. Based on your prejudice, that's okay. That's your assumption. I get it. And also in that answer you just gave, you talked about indoctrinating them and getting the kids to participate in the acts. That's exactly what I just accused you of, that they're turning the kids gay. It's exactly what I accused you of. You proved my point.
No, Bill, are you saying it's absolutely okay to do a sexual striptease in front of a child?
I've never said that. But what I disagree with, hang on a second. No, not at all. What I'm doing is I'm disagreeing with your conclusion that they are groomers and they're trying to become molesters. That's where you find the harm. I disagree with the performance. I also disagree with the fact that they're trying to touch the little boys and the little girls. That doesn't happen in that community. Hang on. Doesn't happen in that community. And you're coming to the prejudicial conclusion that because some kid sees this, they're going to turn gay. And that is such crap. And you know why, Dave? You know this. Because there are a bunch of homosexual kids in this society, and they get heterosexual images pushed on them every single day from all sorts of media. Guess what they don't do? Go have regular sex. Doesn't change them. So how dare you come to the conclusion that a child is going to be changed gay because they saw this? We can agree that the performance is inappropriate, but your conclusion is flat out wrong.
I didn't hear it all. Go ahead, Dave.
Bill, you're speaking nonsense. First off, you're not even adequately and fairly and honestly addressing what I'm trying to say, number one. Number two, you're the one who's getting upset and defending. I don't even know how you can think or say with a straight face that someone dancing provocatively and sexually in front of a child is only doing that for art or something like that. They're not wanting to get some sort of sexual gratification at all. I mean, that's the craziest thing in the world. And by the way, they are doing that.
Hey, Dave, no, they're not. Dave, they're not. Dave, they're not. I've let you go. Fine.
Let me finish, Bill.
Can finish.
They're not all doing that. I'm not saying every single person who is of a different sexual orientation is trying to do this. There are wonderful organizations like Gays Against Groomers, for instance, that are trying to stop this type of behavior. That's not what I'm saying, so please don't twist my words, but you are blind if you think that this stuff isn't happening. You can do a simple Google search of minor drag performers that are getting touched by grown men as they perform and even getting paid to do so like they're at a strip club. If you don't see that, you're blind. And if you're denying it, then you got an agenda, Bill.
Do you think NFL cheerleaders are getting sexual gratification when they perform in front of kids?
Oh, that's not.
And the reason I'm asking is because you say these people that are dancing scantily clad in front of children are getting sexual gratification. I'm wondering if you only see it in the gays or you also see it in the heterosexuals. Do you think Stormy Daniels gets sexual gratification when she goes out and strips? Is that what gets her off? Do you think? Because that's your conclusion based on the gay people. Are you consistent, or is this just about your prejudice?
This whataboutism that you're trying to enforce and all this doesn't look. Did I ever say that anyone who is a heterosexual dancing provocatively or sexually should be doing that? No, I'm not saying that at all, but I don't know why you're trying to make it that.
No, what I'm trying to do, Dave, what I'm trying to do is you said that the dancers that are gay are getting sexual gratification. And I'm asking if you're intellectually consistent. Do you believe heterosexual strippers also get sexual gratification, or is it only something the gay people do? Tell me. Because I just want to know if you're intellectually consistent. I'm not sitting here and trying to be whataboutism.
No,
I want you to be intellectually consistent. Can you be or not?
I've already answered these questions.
I'm all for no more cheerleaders. Sorry, I may take the non-popular vote here among heterosexual men.
I'm okay with no cheerleaders
but
as well.
no cheerleaders, none of that stuff. But look, and Bill, I don't think at all he was saying that all of a sudden these kids are going to become gay because they see pride people dancing around. But to Dave's point, that there's a sexual deviancy here, and they have these pictures of this dude with terrible back hair, by the way, in his underwear, twerking in front of kids, and they're all sitting down right there in front of him. And then you get these weird dudes dressed as dogs wearing leather with like nothing but underwear on, with a young little girl in a pink dress, kind of holding the chain almost, of these dudes dressed as dogs in leather. And then you have Douglas County Pride Fest, where they had to black out an exposed breast, and that was, quote, a family-friendly drag show. So what I think Dave's arguing is that if this was heterosexual, if there were women dressed like that, I mean, this is worse than cheerleader, dude. Dressed like that with little kids around, we would be upset about it. But because it's pride, we go, meh.
I don't defend anything happening in those pictures. What I disagree with is, and the opening line tells it inside of that email, it is equating the LGBTQ community with groomers. Dave himself said these kids are at these performances, they see them, and that these dancers are getting sexual gratification and trying to encourage the kids in order to indoctrinate them and have them participate. That's not true. That's it. And he said it over and over again, and that's what I'm challenging. I'm challenging that conclusion. They're not groomers, not based on their population and what we see. It's not it, man.
You're
wrong.
Go on to libs of TikTok, right? Go on.
You assume that I'm not, but thank you anyway.
No, I'm
let me make the point.
Bill, I'm not necessarily talking to you. I'm talking to the audience here. Go on to those social media accounts and see exactly what they themselves are saying. Those who are perpetuating this pride agenda to try and recruit children into changing their sex or to engage in sexual deviant behavior. They are clearly saying, we're coming for your kids. Even educators, unfortunately, are engaged in this. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. They want to confuse them. They want to talk to them about things that they shouldn't be talking about. And if they are supposed to talk about it, it should be with parents, not with the educators, not with the activists. These things are happening, and to suggest that they're not is just the craziest thing in the world. Yeah, I said what I said in that email, and we stand by it. There is a pride movement in this country that wants to harm children. And if you can't see that, I don't know what to do for you.
I think one of the most shocking images in the email is what they do to with gender transition and gender affirming care, where they cut the arm. Have you seen this, where they create the little male part for a girl that wants to become a male, and they like remove part of their arm, and it looks like horrible. That is shocking. I mean, you guys included that. Dave, you want to talk about kind of the gender? We've gotten into the sexuality stuff, but you want to talk about the gender transition? That's actually surgery.
The so-called gender affirming care, where it's actually medical barbarism. Where they try to tell you, look, if you don't feel the way that you feel, really it's them, I think, influencing them to do it. And at a certain point, they give them puberty blockers, and they do horrible surgeries where they do cut off your forearm. They essentially cut off the tissue on your forearm to create a phallic looking, member, so that you can pretend to be something you're not. And these types of things are ruining it. There are tons of stories. I would encourage you guys. I think Jordan Peterson has looked at this. You've had many other organizations that have interviewed people that have detransitioned, who went through that process and then realized, oops, this was a mistake, and then went back, have horrific stories of trauma that they've worked through, but not without a lot of help, not without a lot of encouragement and support from those who, were really trying to help them work through their mental health issues, as opposed to just giving them some sort of trendy, gender affirming solution. Look at it. These things are real. We are engaged in something that we have never seen before in society. It's a grand experiment that is destined to fail. And this is why I point out people like Joe Rogan, who is not ideologically aligned with someone like me, or Bill Maher, who is not ideologically aligned with someone like me, who are speaking out against this craziness. And if we don't stand up to this, we're going to have more children who are going to be engaged in this type of this horrific treatment. And we should care about that. Again, we don't even let children smoke cigarettes, certainly marijuana, most definitely not. But yet we're going to go ahead and let them engage in or not just mind altering, but physically altering experiences. I think this is the height of craziness, and that's why we said what we said.
Dave Williams, chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. We're up against a break here, but I want to ask you when we come back, you did say you're calling for the burning of pride flags. Was that hyperbole? Is the Republican Party going to be burning pride flags? We'll cover this and more. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in Brussels, I'm William Denslow, and here are the top stories we're following. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will address a joint session of Congress on the 24th of July. The Israeli leader says he will present the truth about his military's operations inside Gaza. The visit to Washington comes after the International Criminal Court announced it has requested an arrest warrant for Netanyahu over alleged war crimes in Gaza. The UN says a quarter of the world's children under 5 are living in severe food poverty. Haley Bianco reports.
A new report by the UN Children's Agency says 181 million children younger than 5 years old live in severe food poverty around the globe. That's more than a quarter of the world's youngest children. Africa's population of more than 1.3 billion people is one of the most affected, mainly due to conflict, climate, and rising food prices. The report defines severe food poverty as consuming nothing in a day or eating only 2 out of 8 food groups. Malnutrition can weaken the immune system over time, leaving children vulnerable to deadly diseases. While the UN urges countries to take action, it also says some progress has been made. In northern Nigeria, women are being trained to garden and cook with local produce.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm William Denslow in Brussels on Salem News Channel.
All right, the phone lines are jam-packed and the text messages are blowing up. Welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking with Dave Williams. He's the chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. He's also a candidate for Congress in Colorado Springs in Congressional District 5, and having a great conversation. And Bill and I and Dave going back and forth on this one. Dave, Colorado Republican Party tweeted out on June 3rd, burn all the pride flags this June. It was in response to Kyle Clark tweeting about this email you guys sent out. Are you calling for people to burn pride flags this June?
Rhetorical device designed to show people our act of defiance against an agenda that has totally taken over this month. Look, if people want to burn pride flags, go ahead and do it, but don't take anyone else's property and don't do anything illegal for sure.
Is that, in your opinion, from your perspective, going to bring people into the Republican Party and get them to vote for us, or do you think that's going to push people away? What's your perspective on that?
I think it's certainly we're gonna have both sides. I mean, we're gonna bring people in for sure, but they're gonna be people that aren't going to be happy with it as well. I mean, look at it from this perspective. We've had a lot of news stories come out where people have, shown their act of civil disobedience, right? Where I don't know if you recall this, but in Florida, there was one truck driver that was doing donuts on a painted pride flag, on the pavement of painted pride flag on the street. So, and that thing went viral. A lot of people were so happy about it because, again, this has all been in your face. From a political perspective, I think we have to realize, something, that if you support the pride agenda, you're not going to vote Republican anyway. So we're not losing you. And if you're someone that is sick and tired of all this stuff that's in your face, I guess the answer is it depends. I mean, ultimately, I think the theory is that people are going to vote their pocketbook, right? I think people are going to be more concerned about this broken economy that Joe Biden has given us, as opposed to whether or not we value the pride flag. But here's an alternative solution. If you don't want to burn a pride flag, go ahead and turn it upside down. Maybe that's a good message.
New York Times will write an article about it. Do you hate gay people? Do you hate the LGBTQ community?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, I've worked with a number of them. My first bill that I ever got passed and signed by then Governor Hickenlooper was with a gentleman named Paul Rosenthal. He's a Democrat. He was also a gay man. And look, he certainly wouldn't agree with what I did here, by the way. I mean, if you were to talk to him, he'd say this is awful. But nevertheless, it doesn't mean that I hate individuals like that. It doesn't mean that I won't work with them. That's a false narrative. And if anyone's peddling it, it's because they don't want to talk about the real issue.
And so to just put a bow on this, it's about the agenda, particularly as it relates to pursuing children and getting them to engage in deviant sexual activity, or the mutilization of children that takes place under the trans ideology. If I was to summarize the goal of the email, the goal of the tweet was to attack those two agendas.
Yeah, I think that's a good summation. Look, at the end of the day, you clicked on it, you read it, you thought about it. You certainly saw the previous email that we included, right? We deliberately wanted to show you exactly what was going on at many of these events and what children were experiencing, and especially the barbaric treatments that are being undertaken that a lot of people don't report on. I guarantee you, Kyle Clark is not going to want to put that picture of the forearm being mutilated and cut up on his program. He doesn't want to talk about that. He wants to try and propagandize the situation, saying, oh my God, we need to help these people transition, and not talk about the truth of actually what's going on. And I think most Americans, if they saw that, would reject this ideology immediately, and we'd see a decline in the support for what pride has become.
Dave Williams, chairman of the Colorado Republican Party, also candidate for Congressional District 5 in Colorado Springs. His website, daveforcolorado.com. That's daveforcolorado.com if you want to learn more about him. Thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show and being able to go back and forth with Billy and I a little bit.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime, guys.
Have a great
Dave
day.
Williams, again, Dave for Colorado.com. All right, I want to get to the phone calls because they are nearly all full. We got an open line if you want to give us a call, 303-696-1971. Let's go
mad
to
at me.
Rafael.
That's a good point. He should be mad at me, but I hope we're okay. I really do, because it's not a personal thing. It's, I think it's intellectual at this point. I don't wish anything bad on him, but yeah, I disagree with his conclusions. That's okay, but that was good. I appreciate, more than anything else, I appreciate the fact that he had the stones to sit with us for almost 40 minutes. There's nobody on the other side of the aisle that has got that kind of a spine, and I salute him, and I respect that more than many people understand and know. I really respect what he just did with us.
Let's go to Rafael on line 2. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Rafael.
Good morning. Thank you guys for taking my call. What I disagree, I can understand this point, but what I disagree is when he generalized and he said, that God hates. Right. First of all, if anybody read the Bible, it says that God doesn't hate anybody. Okay. God is not a God of hate, our God. Secondly, he generalizing, and he shouldn't be generalizing, because if we're going to use his same analogy, then God will hate all the priests, because some of them abuse children, and I don't think that's correct, and that's where I disagree with him by generalizing. That's my point.
Rafael, I think that's a fair point. I thank you so much for the call. Rafael's line will be open 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710K and US app. Let's go to Jacqueline in Nebraska. Jacqueline, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 K and US. Good morning, Jacqueline.
Good morning, fellas. I've been listening to this, and I know it's that Gay Pride month. I've always wondered here, why children? Why do it in front of children anyway? When you have a child, the first thing they learn is usually how to walk, then to talk, and then to eat with a spoon. And who teaches them that? Their parents and who they're around. Children learn by what they see and what they hear. Now, I don't care what they do as consenting adults. I've seen them. And frankly, I am really insulted by the fact that they think I act like that, or any woman does, because we don't.
Jacqueline, I got a question for you. The LGBTQ side would make the argument that look, kids are born gay, and shouldn't they be able to grow up and see people living a gay lifestyle if they were born gay? What's wrong with that?
I don't know how in the hell they would know that, because they simply wouldn't. You wouldn't know anything like that. And I'll tell you, when I was in nursing school, the American Medical Association and college classes that I took in pediatrics and with children said that 99.9% of gays were either molested or raped as young children or young adults. Now, you don't find those statistics anywhere, but we were taught and learned that in nursing school. Now, I don't care what they do as adults. It doesn't matter to me at all. But this business that children are born confused, they're confused by their environment. Now, why would they bother with children? Can they not find enough adult audiences to parade themselves around in front of? Why do they do children? Why do they pick that? Because children can be very easily influenced on what they see and what they hear. And if it's good, it's good. And if it's bad, it's bad.
Jacqueline, thank you so much for the call. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, back to the Jeff and Bill. We just hosted Dave Williams, chairman of the Colorado Republican Party, on an email he sent out titled "God Hates Pride." Smart, defending an issue, pushing it into the conversation, or are we going to lose electoral votes because of it, or lose elections because of it, because people see it as hateful? Eric, let's go to you. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Eric.
Hey, good morning. I just wanted to say, I mean, this is such a blunder, and it just shows that Dave Williams should be kicked out as chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. The sooner, the better.
Is the blunder in your perspective on the issue? Because Republicans defend traditional marriage. It's in our national policy papers. Or is it the messaging and the strategy in a state that votes for someone like Jared Polis twice to be governor?
It's the messaging. I mean, it's definitely an issue where you could win over a lot of votes with it if you talk about it the right way. But you know, this email with a picture of Jesus with like laser eyes and God hates flags with the obvious reference to another phrase is just going to turn so many more people off than it's going to
Eric,
convince.
Great call. I appreciate it. We're just out of time. We're going to have an expert from the Heritage Foundation on next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. You know, a lot of radio shows on Fridays just go to feel good.
Yeah.
Now, what are you doing this weekend, Bill? I want to go to the radio.
Hard to be attractive. I'm spectacularly smart. Yes, you are, sir. Wow.
We are literally sprinting across the controversial line on this show. In the 7 o'clock hour, Greg Lopez joined us. In the 8 o'clock hour, Dave Williams joined us as well. And Dave and Billy, it was a battle of wits. Lora Ries is going to join us next. She's the Director of Border Security and Immigration at the Heritage Foundation. They put out a response to Biden's plan, an executive order calling it unserious. We're going to get the details from one of the greatest conservative think tanks in the world, the Heritage Foundation, coming up here in just a second. Let's check in on the Blake Olson News. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 80 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. Going to be a hot one and a good summer day. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
I mean, this is how we've lost Colorado. This is how we've, in many ways, lost many of the important debates around our country, because we don't talk about it. We don't debate on it. We cede the discussion to our enemies.
Dave Williams, GOP chair, on the show last hour, addressing the email he sent out with the stance that God hates pride.
You have grown men who are nearly naked or naked dancing in front of children. You have them encouraging children to dress up in drag and perform for adults. You have them actually participating in striptease type dances with drag queens, where they're actually putting dollar bills into the G-strings of these sickos. The reason why evil advances and progresses in our country is because we have passive leaders or passive men that would rather stick their head in the sand than simply say, no, this is not right. This is not what we should be doing, and we need to oppose it.
Williams is also a candidate in CD5 and says accepting all of this is the height of craziness.
I'm a firm believer that I have my hand on the pulse of what's going on out there. You know, when I ran for governor, I was out there all the time talking about water, talking about transportation, talking about what was going on.
Greg Lopez filling the void for Republicans in CD4 in the special election before the regular election in Congressional District 4. Lopez joined Jeff and Bill in studio last hour. Illegal immigration is a huge issue, and Lopez says he supports deportation as long as there's a process.
America allows over 1 million people every single year through our immigration process, legally, 1 million. So it's not like we're not welcoming immigrants. We just want them to do it correctly. And when you look at how they're running across the border, our National Guard can't stop them. The Border Patrol is tied. Their hands are tied. There is a problem.
Lopez said he was on a flight from San Antonio last night, and he estimated 80% of the passengers were illegal. A Denver area human trafficker has been sentenced to 448 years in prison, the longest sentence for human trafficking ever handed down in U.S. history. Robert Hawkins was convicted of 18 counts in March, including human trafficking, pimping, sex assault, and exploitation. 4 women, 2 girls, and 1 man have testified against Hawkins, and one of his victims was a 13-year-old. Hawkins rejected a plea deal that would have given him a 40-year sentence. Hunter Biden's trial underway. His late brother's wife took the stand Thursday. She had a relationship with Hunter when he illegally purchased the gun. He was strung out on crack at the time. Now London Roberts, mother of Hunter's 5-year-old daughter, spoke to Piers Morgan last night. President Biden doesn't acknowledge the granddaughter, and Hunter hasn't met her yet.
I mean, like the world knows, Hunter has a lot on his plate right now. And so I think that needs to be his main focus and getting through this time, and then the rest can come after. And you know, Navy's well aware. She knows that her father's very busy right now, and he's got a lot of things going on, and she's waited 5 years. She can wait a couple more months.
And a day after D-Day ceremonies, President Biden has been meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky today in France. State park officials making an official statement saying to always wear a life jacket because they save lives. 15 people have died on rivers and lakes so far this year, and it's still early in the season. Think about that as you get ready for the weekend today. If you're heading to the mountains this weekend, a new warning about possible large wet avalanches through Sunday. The Colorado Avalanche Information Center already recorded several Wednesday, more than typical for early June. Donuts. It's National Donut Day. Go out and have some fun and enjoy yourself. Former Broncos linebacker Randy Gregory has filed a disability and employment discrimination lawsuit against the NFL and the Broncos. The Celtics run past the Mavericks 107-89 in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Game 2 is Sunday. Rockies beat the Cardinals 3-2 Thursday, and first pitch tonight in St. Louis at 6:15. The Stanley Cup Finals tomorrow in Florida. 78 in Northglenn, 77 in Lone Tree, and 80 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. TGIF, Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll continue to be warm. Temperatures reaching a low 90s, sunny to partly sunny, but there will be late afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Lows tonight near 60. It's not going to be as warm. About 80 Saturday, a good chance for afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Lows upper 50s Saturday night, only 70s to low 80s Sunday, late day thunderstorms. 70s, late day thunderstorms Monday, back to the 80s Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Joe Biden put out an executive order on the border earlier this week. The Heritage Foundation calling it unserious. Lora Ries, director of the Border Security and Immigration Center at the Heritage Foundation and former acting deputy chief of staff at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, released the following statement in response to President Joe Biden's deeply flawed executive order meant to assuage, is that how you say that word? Americans' concerns on the ongoing border crisis. President Biden's executive order to let in almost 1 million additional illegal aliens per year is a campaign stunt that isn't worth the paper it's printed on. After months of lying to the American people by saying he's done all he can do to secure the border, he's rolling out an unserious executive order to try to save his sinking poll numbers in the wake of the massively unpopular invasion he has orchestrated. More than 10 million people have entered the country on his watch as a direct consequence of his abuse of our parole system, his refusal to detain illegal aliens, and the empowerment of open border activists like impeached DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. For more than 3 years, Joe Biden has aided a national security crisis at our borders to appease the far left. Today's executive order will not rewrite that history, and Americans will not be fooled. Joining us on the Jeff and Bill Show is Lora Ries. As I mentioned, she's the director of the Border Security and Immigration Center at the Heritage Foundation. Lora, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thanks for having me on.
So let's talk about this. Joe Biden wants to get a plan through Congress to deal with the border. He's not able to do it, so he takes an executive order. What's wrong with that?
Well, because it doesn't change anything, and it hasn't changed anything. We're already seeing reports of thousands of illegal aliens that Customs and Border Protection has had to release onto the streets just in the last few days since Biden signed that executive order. The way it was written also, they included so many exceptions to the rule of ever hitting that cap of 2,500 in a day over 7 days, that it was clearly not going to be used.
What were some of those exceptions?
So unaccompanied alien children, which we should talk about, anyone who's already been in the U.S. 14 days or longer, anyone who made it farther north than 100 miles, anyone who claims a fear, which they're generally all doing anyway, and on and on. So it's a joke And unfortunately, Biden's just using it to say that he did something, to try and again blame congressional Republicans for not passing legislation, though he ignores the fact that the House did its job. It passed an excellent bill, H.R. 2, Secure the Border Act, over a year ago. And he sees his sinking poll numbers, and he's trying to get this millstone off of his neck and try and blame it elsewhere 5 months before Election Day.
You know, I appreciate that. I like the analogy of a millstone. I want you to analyze, can this be effective for Biden? And what I'm asking about is the targeted audience, which I believe is the low information voters that are just starting to get into some sort of election cycle. And they've heard things about immigration and problems. Now they haven't been paying attention to it, like yourself, Jeff, myself. They see Biden do something. Can they be fooled into thinking he's actually got this thing controlled? What do you think?
Generally, no. I mean, he tries to blame Trump. We only have one president at a time. It's Joe Biden. This is his job to secure the border and prevent illegal immigration. And he's not doing the job. And that's intentional. But also, Americans face the consequences of this every single day, whether it is even more overcrowded classrooms, more demands for English as a second language teacher, in which American citizen students then suffer even more in terms of quality education on the heels of COVID, whether it's overcrowded emergency rooms, having to wait longer to see a doctor or a specialist, increases in taxes to pay for all the services and benefits that are going to illegal aliens. Denver residents know this just as well as anyone else in the country right now, et cetera, et cetera. And so the taxes are going to go up. It becomes a fiscal bottomless pit at a time when Americans are already struggling to pay for their gas, their groceries, and their rent.
Talking with Lora Ries, she's the director of border security and immigration at the Heritage Foundation. Lora, now Democrat lawmakers in Colorado, I mean, went nuclear on Joe Biden over this. You're no different than Donald Trump. You're going to, violate a whole bunch of human rights as a result of this executive order. Were they wrong? Is this different than what Donald Trump did, or is it the same of what Donald Trump did?
What it is theater. They know that this isn't going to make a change. This was also a whistle to their ally groups on the left to sue to halt this rule and executive order, which the ACLU, right on cue, indicated within minutes of release of this that they were going to sue. It's very coordinated. The left does this to make it look like there's actually meat and teeth to the executive order when they know very well that there isn't. Unfortunately, everything about this is a fraud, all to give Biden points, supposedly, in this election year, to having done something regarding the border.
Can you give our listeners a kind of a history review of what Joe Biden did when he first got into office, his appointment of Kamala Harris to go down there and deal with, by the way, anybody who is not just a totally uninformed voter is like, really? Anything you put her in charge of is not going to result in being completed. But can you give folks a history lesson of what Donald Trump did and then what Joe Biden did when he came into office with regards to the border?
Right. So what Trump did was halted a lot of the immigration fraud, particularly asylum fraud, and implemented a section that had been in the immigration statute since 1996, but no prior president had used, now known as Remain in Mexico. The notion was you can still apply for asylum, but you're not going to get released into the U.S. while you await your next court date. You have to stay in Mexico. And when your court date comes up, we'll bring you into the U.S. and you can pursue your claim. That stopped the caravans of illegal aliens from coming. In addition, requiring asylum cooperative agreements with Central American countries. Recall, asylum is about protection for your life. You are supposed to be fleeing for your life. And if that is legitimate, you should be asking for protection in the first safe country in which you enter, not traverse 3, 4 more countries just to country shop to get to the U.S. And so Donald Trump enforced that and said, we're sending him back to Guatemala or whatever the first safe country was. And when we did that, the aliens would often say, well, no thanks, I don't want to seek asylum in Guatemala, I'm just going to go home. So it worked. Now, fast forward to Joe Biden, day one, he halted additional registrations or additions to the Remain in Mexico program. He halted those asylum cooperative agreements with the Central American countries. He stopped the border wall construction. He put out an order that said we are not going to deport anybody for the first 100 days. Fortunately, that was overruled in the court. He put out priority memo for immigration enforcement, which basically said don't investigate, arrest, detain, deport anyone unless they are spies, terrorists, some aggravated felons. But even with those, look at the totality of the circumstances, and anyone who entered illegally since the 2020 election. Well, even that memo was a joke, but nonetheless, it tied the hands of immigration enforcement officers. So not only was he letting millions into the country, he wasn't deporting them either.
Talking with Lora Ries, she's Director of Border Security and Immigration at the Heritage Foundation. So then the polls start to look bad for Joe Biden. He appoints Kamala Harris and that, I mean, from your perspective, was that just a total joke?
Yes, they came up with we're going to look for root causes of this mass migration. All they had to do was look at the very executive orders that Biden signed on day one when he took office. That's the root cause.
Well, the root cause is that we're a rich country. There's poor countries. I want to go live in a rich country.
Right. And it whistled to future illegal aliens. We're opening the doors. You can come on in and we're not going to deport you. But really what it ended up being is an excuse to send millions, billions of dollars to NGO allies of the left in Central America for supposed root causes that had nothing to do with more than, woke issues like trans, etc. The same domestic woke issues they're handing money out here domestically, they were giving to NGOs in Central America and elsewhere for the same reasons. It has nothing to do with mass migration, but it gave her supposedly a job, which she's filled at miserably, given that we now have 10 million illegal aliens who've come in under Biden.
No, a question that Billy and I were debating earlier. Is this the result of incompetence by the Biden administration, or is there a nefarious plan to change this country by allowing so many illegal immigrants in?
It's definitely the latter. If they had wanted to change it, they would have done it by now. CBP reports their numbers every single month. They have been historically high, historically bad, whether it's illegal alien encounters, migrant deaths, unaccompanied alien children, fentanyl deaths. It's just bad record after bad record. And yet the Biden administration has not changed course. So this is by design. It is for political reasons. They view these populations as raw Democrat voters. They are fighting mightily to register these people to vote, even though that's illegal. They are using the entire federal government to help register people to vote and then hope that they do in fact vote, which is also illegal. So they are demeaning the value of being a U.S. citizen. They are neutering American citizens' votes. And then also you have to think about the U.S. Census, which is used for apportionment to draw U.S. congressional districts. And the left succeeded at keeping the U.S. citizenship question off of the U.S. Census, which means everybody is counted: illegal aliens, temporary visitors, green card holders, U.S. citizens. And that head count is used to draw congressional districts, even though only U.S. citizens can vote. So a state like California, with a very high non-citizen population, gets more congressional districts than it otherwise should if just U.S. citizens were counted. And this is a zero-sum game. If California gets more districts, that means other states get fewer than they should.
Lora Ries, Director of Border Security and Immigration Center at Heritage Foundation, joining Jeff and Bill live. I want to talk about the assumption that we have that all of these illegal immigrants are eventually going to be Democrat voters. What I don't understand from Republicans is acquiescing that entire potential voting block. Now, I'm not talking about whether or not, they're illegal or make them legal, anything else. I'm just talking about the base assumption of, well, throw up our hands. Obviously, they're all going to be Democrat voters. Nothing we can do, and this is wrong. There is a marketing opportunity. Many of these immigrants are coming from places in which is more conservative. Much of the Hispanic population, especially through Central and South America, show much more conservative type of values that could resonate here. If we're worried about the illegal immigrants and the population in California because they're all going to be Democrats, they don't automatically fill out that voter registration. Imagine if the GOP could persuade them to be conservative and register as Republicans. Now you change the voting dynamics in California. The thing that you were just saying is a big negative for the state could actually help balance things out. Why do you feel the Republicans throw up their hands and go, nope, nothing we can do about these illegals? They're obviously Democrats.
Well, Republicans suffer from lack of organization on many fronts. This is one of them. And we have seen a little bit of movement, as you've described, in places like South Texas in recent elections where more Hispanics have voted Republican. And some Republicans tout that, but too few work for it. But generally, you're right. Republicans need to do a much better job to organize these populations to register Republican, to vote conservative, and take away this assumption from the Democrats.
Oh, Laura, I love that. And here's the reason why is I think about, look at all the joy that could be captured inside the GOP when the Democrats let all the illegal immigrants in. We convert them through Democrat policies to citizens, and huzzah, they're Republicans. Come on, how fun is that?
It's like
how fun is that?
It's like if churches engage in ballot harvesting. That would be the quickest way to shut down ballot harvesting.
Exactly.
Lora Ries, Director of Border Security and Immigration at Heritage Foundation. Bill and I have often talked about this. Republicans make the claim that they're going to be voting in elections, but in Colorado, for instance, there's an ID that illegal immigrants that can get, and it specifically says not for use in voting. How do illegal immigrants vote if it's against the law for them to be able to vote?
Well, many places don't require ID, and so you can register through, the DMV. You can register now through these federal agencies. I've seen state agencies, like, for example, in South Carolina, if you're a refugee and seeking benefits, then South Carolina has been pushing voter registration. So they are being bombarded with voter registration. And then, if there's no consequences, generally, while there is evidence of voter fraud, it's certainly not enough evidence of what we have to assume is actually occurring. And so the consequences of being caught is very low, being punished for it even lower, and yet the benefit is high, and that's the risk for fraud, or that's a recipe for fraud.
Well, if they were illegal in the country and they tried to vote illegally, the consequence would be deportation. I'm not certain that is inconsequential. In fact, that seems to work against the entire motivation of them being here.
Well, I can tell you, as a prior INS trial attorney, I can count, I maybe had 2 such cases of someone who admits that they voted or registered to vote. And so, yes, it is a ground of deportability, but that ground is hardly ever charged.
Okay, that's fair. And to me, that's more based on the system than the deterrence not working. It's the deterrent could be there, but the issue is the system isn't enforcing it. So it's not necessarily that it doesn't work. It's just that we've decided not to.
Right. And I think there needs to be much more messaging to try to discourage these people from registering to vote or vote by reminding them, hey, this is against the law and you will be subject to deportation if you do this.
That's one. Now, Laura, why do you think the GOP isn't doing that? Because again, if our assumption is that we have, hundreds of thousands of illegals across the country that are voting in elections they shouldn't be, and they're swinging elections and keeping Republicans out of office, why not do the simple messaging of, if you're registered to vote and you're here illegally, you are going to be deported? That seems to be a very quick, concise, easily digestible message. Why haven't we seen that?
Again, my earlier comment about disorganization, but hopefully the RNC staff are listening and they will take up that messaging tip.
Lora Ries, I want to talk to you about mass deportation. A lot of candidates are being asked about this. How is it going to work? Are we going to end up in situations where you have like little Elian Gonzalez's pulled out of closets by men with guns? Are you working to put together a plan on what mass deportation could look like if Donald Trump's elected?
Well, Heritage is a leader on what's called Project 2025, which is giving policy recommendations for a future conservative administration. And we saw some of this when Trump was president last time. He made a quick effort to first go after gang members that were here. And with the 10 million who've come in under Biden, including 2 million known gotaways, there's going to be a lot of national security threats who are here, a lot of serious criminals, et cetera. And so I'm sure he would prioritize, the biggest threats and find them, detain them, and remove them first. The left will, of course, do media as you described, showing a child crying and saying this child was ripped out of his mother's arms to be deported. It's pretty sick. Americans want a legal system. Americans are ready to have large numbers of deportations because we need to get control back over our immigration system and our sovereignty. And Americans realize that this is unsustainable, whether it's personal safety, national security, or just economic security and the cost for all of this. And so the left will try and paint it as, very sympathetic. They will continue to claim child separation for decades. And they don't get called out on it enough. It's regarding. Go ahead.
No, please. I think we had a little break there, so I thought you'd finish the sentence. Go ahead, please.
With regard to unaccompanied alien children, the left has encouraged, they were the ones who legislated for unaccompanied alien children, and they shower them with immigration benefits, which encourages more parents to send their kids across the border unaccompanied. This is intentional family separation as designed by the left. And when Joe Biden makes unaccompanied children as an exception to this executive order, it just tells you how much they value unaccompanied alien children, which leads to sex trafficking and child labor violations. It is extremely perverse.
That's very interesting that they've crafted this law as an incentive for child separation and for kids unaccompanied to come across the border. I just, as a parent, I can't imagine that. I really can't. It's just as putting your child through that and the risk of that. I don't know. Do you, Billy? I don't know. How do you feel about that? Do you see that as parents seeking the very best for their children, therefore we're willing to risk it? Or is it a form of abuse to try to drop a child off and say, walk across the border?
I think more times than not, I believe that the parents are trying to look for the best for their child, but it is completely misguided and they're not going to get the results that they want. And what I'm saying is I can see being put in a situation where I'm in a country where whatever it is so bad that I feel I can't doom my children for this same existence. However, the solution is not to pay criminals to get them somewhere else thousands of miles away where I, as a parent, don't have the ability to chaperone, be with them and see what happens. Because as soon as they leave my custody, whatever happens, happens. And I have no recourse.
I mean, is that like child abuse? I mean, if you handed your kid to a cartel operator in Denver and said, hey, watch my kid for the afternoon while I go have, a steak. you'd be brought up on child abuse charges.
Possibly not. Again, it depends. If the cartel person, even then, if they're doing all the druggy things, as long as we're not doing the crimes and they hang out with the kid for the half hour or hour, whatever it is, you probably don't have a specific crime there. Is it an absolutely poor parental choice? Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. Yep. And that's why I have an empathy for the parents that feel this has to be the choice. However, I also feel that based on the economic incentive, and we've seen this elsewhere around the world, that sometimes those children are a commodity. There's sometimes it is a, hey, we're sending you to America, and the kid doesn't know they're actually being sold into human trafficking, and then mom and dad are pocketing the money, and this makes their lives better. And that's the part where, and when we don't know, and in these, and I appreciate what Laura's saying, we don't know in these cases which ones they are. So I can be okay with assuming the trafficking so many times. And I agree with you. What would it take for you to let your kids go and hand them, again, not to a school chaperone, not to a professional, not to a family member, not to a friend,
to a rapist?
But to just a major criminal, criminal organization. That's a broken brain decision on a level that I can't wrap my mind around at times.
Laura, you want to give a final comment?
Yeah, we need to take away the immigration benefit incentives for unaccompanied alien children and to stop the flow through that pipeline. And to complete the package, then, a few years later, the Democrats say, well, we need to give green cards to those who came here as children. It's like, well, yeah, you designed it that way. So honestly, they have built an immigration system on the backs of children. And yes, it is resulting in sex trafficking and child labor violations, and it is an exploitation of children.
Lora Ries, she's Director, Border Security and Immigration Center and Senior Research Fellow with regards to Homeland Security at the Heritage Foundation. Her X account is x.com/Lora_Ries. Her last name spelled R-I-E-S if you want to follow her. Lora_Ries, R-I-E-S is how you spell her last name. I have such respect for the Heritage Foundation, the great work that you all are doing. I'm probably the president of the Kevin Roberts fan club. But Laura, thank you for all you're doing at Heritage. Thank you for setting up the second Trump administration to be as successful as they can. Keep up the great work.
Well, thank you both for having me on.
Again, Lora Ries, Director, Border Security and Immigration Center at the Heritage Foundation. What did you think about that? Lots of text messages coming in. Let's see what our buddy Tony has to say. Tony from Denver, since Laura seems to have such a problem with illegals being counted in the census, she needs to pursue a constitutional amendment because that's what it would take. Constitution clearly says that all people residing in the country should be counted. Biden was just reversing an unconstitutional Trump because Trump was the one who added citizenship question. Yeah, but I think there's a good argument, Tony, as to whether or not the founders anticipated 10 million illegal immigrants coming across our border when they wrote that originally in the Constitution, and maybe perhaps we do need to pursue an amendment. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. I want to talk to you about Dan Caplis, my friends at Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for decades. He's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. He's with us on the values. That matters because who you choose to represent you represents you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis is the son of a police officer. He's also a former seminarian. He has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. He's a serious lawyer for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplislaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. All right, we'll get to your calls and texts next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in Brussels, I'm William Denslow, and here are the top stories we're following. The US is encouraging China to attend a planned summit on Ukraine this month in Switzerland. But so far, Beijing has said it will stay away because Russia has not been invited. Lora Westbrook reports.
Beijing said China's position on the peace summit was it would continue to promote talks for peace in its own way. This comes after ministers from China and Ukraine met in Beijing this week, where the Ukrainians said they urged Beijing to send a delegation. But President Zelensky has accused Beijing of trying to stop other countries from attending the summit in Switzerland, something Beijing denies. In Hong Kong, Lora Westbrook for Salem News Channel.
Hunter Biden's sister-in-law told a federal court in Wilmington, Delaware, that she threw away his gun after finding it in his truck. The jury was also shown text messages from Haley Biden, telling her brother-in-law to check himself into a rehab center. Hunter Biden is accused of lying about his drug addiction when he bought a gun in 2018. The president's son has pleaded not guilty to the 3 charges against him, with his defense saying he had no intent to deceive. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm William Denslow in Brussels on Salem News Channel.
Wow, it's been a wild morning, Billy.
Oh, yeah, it has. It's been crazy. It's been fun, though. Great conversations, amazing texts, and great callers, and wow, next level guests. Lopez, Williams, Lora Ries. It's been fun, man.
It's been great.
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic to your argument, Bill, that Democrats have not shown illegal immigrants voting in large measures, other than the census. I think the census is a problem. You count people, not citizens, and then you allocate congressional seats based upon it. And it is a zero-sum game, to Laura's point. But I haven't seen much coverage of large amounts of illegal immigrants swaying elections by voting illegally. Now, I know Democrats in some places want
local elections.
Maybe it's local elections they're willing to have them.
Yeah, and here's the thing is, and I think you've expressed this kind of in the past, and so have some of the callers, that the voting in local elections is the camel's nose under the tent, because once you get them voting in local, even if it's just local municipal or school board, you then can say, well, they're already voting here, so can they vote here? Well, now they're voting in, municipal elections. Can they vote in state elections? Oh, they're already voting in state elections, so now we can do national. I mean, that is the path forward of what they're looking at. And Laura outlined there are some guardrails in place as far as illegal voting. Like here in Colorado, they do have to verify you. You can't just show up and say, "Hey, I'm not here legally. I don't have these papers, but I want to register to vote." You can't do that, and that's why DMV and other things are involved. But the other part is, I do believe that part of the motivation for the Democrats in counting all the immigrants is because of congressional representation. I think you're right that they are trying to bend into those cities that are normally, that's why the sanctuary cities. Yep, more power. Now, the only reason that I can be persuaded to count them is only not based on the congressional thing, based on resources. And if there was a way that we could separate the two, and I'm not certain how we could ever do that, because I feel that if you're allocating resources based on money and investment, it should take into consideration the total population, both legal and illegal, because they all draw on those resources, regardless of whether or not we agree they should. Because if those illegal people are still in the existing population, unless we just say, you get nothing right now, and we're okay with you starving on the street, those resources for the actual citizens get constrained. And I don't want that to happen. But I don't think that in the larger segment of the population, they should be considered for things like congressional representation, because, again, they're not citizens. Resource allocation, sure. Voting, that type of legislative power, no. That I can't get there.
You know what was interesting about that conversation with Laura, and we've pressed this on mass deportation as to whether or not we're going to get to the point where we're kicking in closet doors to rip little kids out and hiding them. She's the head of Heritage's Foundation Border Security and Immigration Center. And she didn't even agree to that.
I know.
So I don't think that Republicans are ever going to get to that level. I think it's going to only go for criminals, violent criminals. But the idea that you're going to buses pulling into, Hispanic communities in Denver with agents kicking down doors and ripping kids out and throwing them in, I don't think that's going to happen. So I think it's probably a lot of election year hyperbole that's going to happen. But I think at the end of the day, even on the conservative side, let's say Republicans win the presidency, the House, and the Senate, they have total control.
Yeah.
I think it's only going to stop with criminals.
Now, here's the thing is, I think that this ends up being an unintentional trap for Republicans, and they're setting it themselves, and they are gladly walking right into it. And what I mean by that is this larger promise of mass deportation. They can't accomplish that. There's no way it's going to happen.
Because you're going to have police agencies that aren't going to agree with it.
And also,
like you mentioned,
think about the numbers of people, the amount. I mean, we could probably start buses and planes 24 hours a day, every 10 minutes, and it could go for years, and you couldn't get all of them out. If all of a sudden, like in the video games, they all have little things.
Sad state of affairs.
That's a problem. So the thing that I say is it's a trap because it can't be done.
Yeah.
So what they're promising, they can't accomplish. And the worst is, I think you're right. The targeting should be at the criminals, but we've talked about it before. Those are the most expensive and most difficult ones to go after because they're the ones that don't want to be caught. It's easy to find the family that has got their kids in school and is going to work, and maybe they're working under a pass, maybe they're working illegally and they're taking money under the table. It's easy to find them. really hard to find the criminals, because if it was, our buddy Stephen Tubbs will be rounding up all the illegal criminals here in the city and helping the DA get out of there. It's much harder for him to do that. He's doing yeoman's work in order to help them do
Try
that.
to find him.
Yeah, but that's the issue, is I think it becomes a promise you can't fulfill, and then what do you think the Democrats are going to do when you can't fulfill it? Call you a
They're
bunch of
going
liars.
to use it against you.
Exactly.
Like Joe Biden
Yeah.
did with the immigration promises already.
Completely.
So next week, Gay Ribble is going to be in studio with us. I adore Gay Ribble. First of all, she's one of the kindest people out there. And if you're going to sell a house, you want to work with somebody that can take the pressure off of you, right? She's easy to work with, delightful, all that stuff. But second, she shares our values. She gives back to orphans in the state of Colorado because she was an orphan herself. She was raised in a great Christian family, gave her a wonderful future, and she wants to give that to children as well. So, by hiring her, your money is going to be donated as well to good causes. But third, she is a pro, and we all have family members and friends that are real estate agents. At the end of the day, it's a business deal for you and your family. You got to get the most you can out of it. Gay Ribble and her team at Empower Home Team get their clients an average of $30,000 more. Could you use an extra $30,000? That's precisely why you need Gay Ribble and the Empower Home Team. Their exclusive database is filled with pre-screened buyers ready to make a purchase. Take the stress and hassle out of selling your home while getting the best price. Here's an unbeatable offer. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home Team will sell your house for 100% of the asking price, or Gay will pay you the difference. It's an offer you simply cannot refuse. Get 100% of your asking price guaranteed with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home Team. Give them a call today, 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. All right. Saw this on the Hunter Biden case this week. The FBI admitting that all along the Hunter Biden laptop was real. I want to take you on a little journey back in time to 2020.
Oh, not there. I'm sorry.
Audio's not
playing. I'm sorry. I had to bring it down for something. Hang on a sec here. Okay, now we're up.
All right. 2020.
And tonight, the Trump campaign is accusing Twitter and Facebook of censorship after the social media companies blocked the spread of an unverified story about former Vice President Joe Biden's son and a laptop allegedly full of his old emails. It's a story raising concerns about whether it's real or just designed to sow confusion in the final weeks of the election.
Experts say it has all the hallmarks of information laundering.
This looks like your classic disinformation campaign.
Eric O'Neill is a former
You remember all that stuff? Oh, it's a classic disinformation campaign. Blah, 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 blah. Well, it was right all along. Being a conservative is being right and then being told you're wrong and then eventually being right. That's what I've come to understand in life. All right, I want to talk to you about Ultra Botanica. Look, most curcumin products out there are going to require you to purchase it ahead of time to try it, not with UltraCur. Okay, UltraCur is a patented non-prescription natural capsule, and they believe so much that it'll help you with your soreness, it'll help you with your pain points, that they're willing to give you a free 3-day trial. All you have to do is go to Denver Metro Natural Grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial. Get curious, Denver. Head to the Natural Grocers. Grab your free 3-day UltraCur trial with no strings attached. UltraCur gives you unique control over your daily wellness. It's gentle on your stomach, and it's a natural antioxidant. If you're wondering about the research, get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Speaking of Charlie Kirk, I want to wish Charlie and Turning Point a very happy 12th birthday. Can you believe all that they have achieved in 12 years? I know Charlie, when he was just getting started, I got an email from him back in 2016 going, hey, Jeff, any chance I might be able to be on the main stage of the summit? Now I have to beg him and pay him a huge fee to come out and speak anytime we host him again because he gets so popular.
Yeah, he did. You're saying Turning Point is reaching puberty. That's great.
Yeah.
That's good for them. I started explaining to him how you get hair in all sorts of weird places.
This weekend, I'm going to get to use my roll-mount shelves, Billy.
Oh, that's wonderful.
They are great. Have they installed them with your mom yet?
Not yet. It's still a couple of weeks out because, again, it takes some time because they're all custom built for exactly the space in your house. Exactly they take care of all the math. Math is hard.
We've had the privilege of being able to use them for about a week now, and they've made our lives so much easier. Roll-em-out shelves allow you to pull your shelves out. And you know, these builder grade little wobbly shelves, these are high quality Baltic birch shelves built right here in Colorado and guaranteed for life. They came out to the Hunt House. We have a small kitchen for 6 people, and we're able to reach now. And in the past, you had to kind of reach and pull things out to get to them. Now we just pull out the shelves. It's so easy. We actually had them installed in our laundry room as well. So life is great at the Hunt House as a result of Roll-em-out shelves. Check them out at rollemoutshelves.com or call them at 303-475-9601. That's 303-475-9601. rollemoutshelves.com. Get a chance to meet and know Joyce and Brent Tolliver. They're a mom and son dynamic duo, leaving satisfied customers wherever they go. They got a whole bunch of 5-star reviews as well. Listen to one of these. We're so happy with our kitchen now that we're planning to do our bathroom as well. Again, rollemoutshelves.com. Begin the affordable transformation in your home for less than $1,000.
It's so easy, and they'll do custom designs for whichever you need. And the other part that's been so nice with them working with my mom is she's in her 80s. She has some issues as far as how far can she bend over?
Yeah.
How far do you want her reaching? They solved all the problems.
That's fantastic. Guess what weekend this is? It's one of my favorite.
What is it?
Elizabeth Stampede. I'm going to the rodeo, baby.
You got to give us an update.
I'll give you. I want to go to all your rodeos. So text me. Tell me how to. It's been a great show. Been the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. We'll see you Monday.